Okay. G'day ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure who's with me. Sorry about that one. I took the stream down very briefly, probably just for a couple of reasons. I just wanted to make sure that when it archives it in the end it cuts that countdown off. So I thought I'd get rid of that. And yeah, just to sort of make life a bit easier. Just wanted to double check the camera and stuff too, make sure that's working. I'm not normally on a camera. I don't normally have my face in these videos, so this is a little bit weird for me. Hope it's all coming through okay. Howdy guys, thanks for joining us. Really excited. This is the first one of these that I've ever done. I've not done a live stream talking about this kind of stuff before, so this should be pretty exciting. It's a bit of a test for the technology, for all my gear, and it's a bit of a test for myself as well. So a lot of this is going to be largely unscripted. I've got I've got my notes here. I've got everything that I want to talk about. We've got a bit of an agenda on how I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and not take up heaps of time. I do like to talk a lot though, so yeah, sorry if we do. Maybe a few quick interruptions and quick breaks and stuff along the way. Just having a drink or two while I do this, just to keep myself hydrated. So there may be a couple of bathroom breaks. I've got a couple of cats around here somewhere too. I think there's one asleep in the chair over there, so there's a good chance I might have to let him out at some point. So, you know, sorry if anything goes wrong, if I'm not coming through alright, or if you can't sort of see anything. Just let me know. This is all a work in progress. It's a bit of a test, so I want to know, if there's anything that I'm not noticing, just tell me, and I'll get on top of that. So cool. Thanks again for joining us, guys. I think we got a couple of you at the moment. That's really cool. Even if there's no one here, I'm going to sort of try and continue anyway. Just like I said, this is going to archive in my channel, so I think it'll be a good little thing for any of my viewers to be able to have a look at. And just quickly as well, I've got my Discord channel. If you're not a member of that, please feel free to jump in. You're welcome to ask questions in there or in the chat. So the structure of this, I do want to sort of run through a few of the things that I've put in the description. If you haven't read that, have a bit of a look. There. It should sort of run you through what we're going to be talking about. I've got a bit of an agenda. I'm hoping to sort of spend no more than like half hour, 45 minutes on sort of each major part. If I can, I'll try not to take too long, and we're just going to run over things really quick. So like I said, if you do have any questions though, hit me with them, and I'll try and sort of incorporate that, and I'll keep things sort of running as smoothly as I can. We might have a break if we need to, see how we go, and I'm going to try and open up a bit of time as well for some general questions, and I'll do my best to answer them for you guys. Hopefully these are, if you have any questions, it's going to be stuff I've covered before, or something I'm familiar with. If not, hey, we can do a bit of research and we can try and work it out for you. So cool, we'll get started. So at the moment you should be, apart from my wonderful... Sorry, there's a cat that needs to go out. Come on, buddy. Apart from my wonderful face, you should hopefully be able to see my my copy of Unity. I'm using, what am I using? I'm using 2017.3.0 F3, just the personal edition because I do that. And the version doesn't really matter. I'm not going to be covering anything that's going to be particularly specific to version, so if you've got a newer one, a later one, shouldn't matter too much. We should be alright. If we do have any problems though, shout out. Hey, I'll see if I can help you out with them. Cool, so we're looking at Unity. One of the first few things I want to cover. I do want to go over the interface. If you've spent any time with Unity, you're probably already going to be familiar with this, so hey, just follow along and we'll do what we can. I'm going to try and cover this quickly, and like I said, shout out if you have any questions at any point. So cool, the interface. First thing you might notice if you're really new to Unity, or you've sort of not run it before, you've only used it a couple of times, you're probably going to notice that my interface does look significantly different to yours, and that largely is because, and one of the cool things that I like about Unity, is the entire interface is completely customizable. So what you can see here is a whole series of windows and little tabs that are all sort of arranged the way I like them. I'll run through them very quickly, and then I might sort of show you just quickly how you can customize that if you need to. So probably the most important windows are the ones that I've got open at the moment. We've got the hierarchy view, which is the one I've got the mouse over at the moment. With this view, we can basically see any objects that we've added into our scene. So a scene, it's probably worth mentioning, is just a sort of our current game world, the current game section that we're working on. All our game objects are going to go into the scene, and pretty much everything that happens is going to happen to the player within that scene. So the hierarchy is just sort of a list of objects that are within it. It's an easy way to be able to select them, to go through and to pick the things that you want to be able to interact with. So we'll cover that in a little bit more in just a second. Probably the only other important things worth mentioning with the hierarchy view at the moment, you can use it to be able to nest objects, so you can make objects children or parents of other objects, just to sort of keep things organized. It also comes in handy with your code and just allows you to modify and interact with them a little bit easier. A lot of uses for that. We'll cover it in a bit more detail at a later point. You can also filter objects, so if you have a bit of a look here, you can see there's a search bar at the top. I've got 2 objects in my scene at the moment, nothing exciting. These are the standard, like the default objects that will be in every new scene that you create, and that is a directional light and a main camera. Let's say I've got a whole list of objects in there, I'm looking for one in particular, I can actually filter those out. So if I search for, say, camera, I'm only going to get results in there that include that term, so in this case just the camera. You'll notice as well that the scene turns grey when I do that, and that is because if I have a whole heap of objects in there and I filter them using the search, it's going to hide anything that doesn't fall in that search from view. It's going to make it a lot harder to see, so it should sort of visibly highlight anything that you're searching for. It's a little bit hard to sort of represent that at this point, but we'll probably see that a little bit later anyway. But yes, you can search, and that's a good little thing. You can search in most of the windows as well where relevant. I'll sort of show you that in each one. What are we going to talk about next? So we've got the hierarchy. Probably the next one is probably the most important window in the entire Unity. You should be using this one. If you don't have this visible to you, then make it visible. I'll show you how in a second. But that is the console window down here in the bottom left. This is going to show you all the important stuff you need to know about your game when you're running it, when you're testing it, when you're building it. It's going to include all your logging information. It's going to have all your information entries, so if you intentionally log certain things to the console, they're going to appear down there, so you can use that for debugging. It's fantastic. Unity has a few information alerts that might come your way. You're also going to get little so what are these warnings, and you can filter them by clicking these. I don't have anything down here at the moment. We'll see some stuff in there. I'm sure you're familiar with that if you've used Unity at all. But yes, you'll get your information alerts, your warning alerts, and your errors. And they're sort of your different levels of alert, I guess. Your errors are your significant things. They are the ones that are going to stop your game. Your warnings are sort of like, hey man, this thing's not quite right. You probably want to pay attention to it. It's not an issue at the moment, but it could get there. And then you've got your information, which is just like debug logs and yeah, sort of nothing major, but just stuff there for your information. We have a few little buttons there as well in that window, the console window. We can clear the log by clicking the clear button. Hey Tom, thanks mate, that's awesome dude. I love hearing that stuff. It actually makes it, yeah, well worthwhile. Thanks mate. Where was I? Yeah, you can click the clear button down here. If there were anything in that log, it's just going to wipe it out. You got the collapse button. That just basically just groups things together. So if you've got a whole bunch of alerts coming up for one thing in particular, like the same alert going off over and over again, collapse will just keep them all in one entry, and you'll get a little number next to it. We'll see that a bit more later. Clear on play is just a little like toggleable option, same as collapse. You can turn it on and off. Basically, we'll just, like it says, when you test your game, when you hit that play button, that big play button up there, it's just going to clear that log out. It's usually on by default. It's helpful just so you can ensure that what you're seeing in that console is relevant to your current testing session, and not anything else. Jesco, buddy. Hey man, good to see you. My arch nemesis is here, guys. That's Jesco. If you're not familiar with him, you should totally check out his channel. Feel free to chuck that in the chat if you want to be that bold, buddy. So that's the console window. It's important. Always have it visible when you're playing your game. If you're doing any sort of testing, you should always be keeping an eye on that console. Like so many times I've had screenshots from people just saying, hey, why doesn't this thing work? And you know, they got all this information on screen. The first thing you see is like the console window sitting down there, like hidden from view, but there's a big red exclamation mark, and you know they've got an error, and you just can't see it because it's hidden from view. Always check your console. It's like number one. It's yeah, it's gonna save your life a lot. Use it, have it visible. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Cool. Alright, next is probably the project window, which is this one here. Excuse me. Similar to the others, if you've used Unity for even 10 minutes, you're probably going to know what this is. It basically just contains all your assets in your game, so your scripts, your materials, your objects, like your prefabs. It's going to contain just everything, audio clips, textures, images, whatever. Everything goes in your project window, and your project is essentially, and let me see if I can bring this up really quick, which I can probably do now. Just because I've actually created the project. So here we go, here's the actual project file for this project that we're looking at the moment, or the project folder, sorry, I should say, sitting on my hard drive. And we can see here we've got an assets folder. So that, basically anything in that assets folder is going to pop up down here in our project view, and I can probably show you that. There we go. If we just go back to Unity, there it is. So Unity knows what's in that folder, so you can actually chuck stuff in there that way, or you can add them via the Unity editor itself. But that's what that is. So if we actually have a look at the project folder itself, you can see there's a bunch of stuff in there. A lot of default folders have been created, but the assets folder is what you're looking at there. That's what this project is. So you'll be referring to that a lot. That's basically where you're going to be getting everything from. If you want to add a texture to your game, you're going to be dragging and dropping it out of here, or you know, you're going to be editing it in here in some way. It's just, yeah, everything goes in there. It's important. You will use it a lot. Cool. That's the projects. Actually, one thing probably worth mentioning there. You have this option here, the 1 column and the 2 column layout. That's a bit of a personal preference, really. Some people love it, some people don't. I use the 1 column layout a lot, and I'm just setting up so I can show you this. Document. I think this should sort of show how it works. And if I just create a text document, create another one. That's okay, Jessica, my man. A scenic helicopter ride? Dude, no, man, you gotta stay here and listen to me instead of going on a helicopter. Cool, man. Yeah, me. I'll try and catch up with you soon, dude, and yeah, just have a chat to you. Been meaning to see how things are going. It's always good to hear from you, though. Cool. We got my we got my text documents. I'm not doing good with this keeping a quick thing. We'll get there. If we can now go back into Unity, it's going to suck all that in. There we go. We can see it there. So I'm in 1 column layout. That sort of acts very typically like a file explorer, I guess. Sort of similar to what you see here. You know, you got your folder, you got your file, you double click your folder to see what's in it, blah blah blah. This is very similar. One column layout is very much like that. Like you sort of just have your folder structure there, and if you expand, like drill down far enough into a folder, you'll see the files as well. 2 columns a bit different. If we do that, we get basically the folder structure there on the left. Here we go. Like I said, I don't use it very much. Like, it's a personal preference. If you like it, use it. I'm not saying one's better than the other. If I click on the assets folder, I can see the file there. So it's sort of like you've got to click the folder that you want. You've also got a favorites up here. It's probably one of those things where, yeah, if you get used to it, it's probably incredibly efficient to use the 2 column layout. Just traditionalist. I like the 1 column. But yeah, it's just different views. Play with it, see what you like. That's all there is to it. I'm just going to bring that folder back up, and I'm going to get rid of all that because I don't want it done. Cool. Sorry, I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat too. I'm getting used to this. If I miss anything, just yell louder. Maybe I'll hear you. I'm not sure. Alright, cool. So that's the, what was that? That was the project window that we just had a look at. We've got the scene window. Like I said, the scene is your current, I don't know, your current section of the game that you're working on. That could be a it could be anything from a menu, like a main menu, a credits sequence, level 1, level 2, it could be your entire game, could be on one scene, whatever. But your scene is represented through this scene view window here. I'm just going to full screen this a little bit, which I did Shift Tab to full screen the current selected window. Shift Tab, and no, not Shift Tab, Shift Space even, that would be better, sorry. We have a bit of a look at the scene view. There's quite a bit going on already. This might be a bit daunting if you've sort of not seen it before. I've been using a blender a lot lately, so if I fumble around with the movement controls, sorry, I'm just, different hotkeys. So if we're having a look at the scene view here, I'll just run you through these buttons real quick. So like the tooltip there says, the draw mode used to display the scene. So this drop down is just basically, for want of a better description, just different view options for your scene view itself. I don't think I really use that very much. I'm sure there'd be a use for it. I'm not sure what that is. Let's just actually, I'm just going to create a cube here, just a good old cube, just to try and make this a bit more obvious what's going on. So wireframe, shaded wireframe. You get a bunch of just view options in there really. Different ways of viewing your game scene. We've got the 2D button there, which is pretty cool. Usually you'll set your project up, and I'm going to cover this in a little bit later, but usually you'll set your project up as 2D or 3D when you create it. So I don't think I really use this 2D view unless I'm trying to get a bit of a better look at something. But you can use that, so yeah, like it says in tooltip, when you turn it on, the scene goes 2D, when it's turned off, it's 3D. You can just affects sort of the way you're perceiving your game scene. You've also got this little sun icon button here. Excuse me. If you've got that turned on, it's going to be trying its best to show you what that game scene looks like using the lighting you have present in the scene. So in this case, I had the directional light. So I'm guessing we should be able to see a bit of shadowing and stuff. You can sort of see that there. Yeah, you got some shaded sort of parts of that cube there. I'm sorry if my keyboard's clicky too. I don't actually know if that's coming through loud. If it is, I can fix that. Let me know. But yeah, so the scene at the moment that we're looking at is currently using the lighting that's present in it. Where's that directional light? There it is. So where's it pointing? So pointing downwards that way. So yeah, it's affecting that cube. So if we turn that off, it just basically, I think it sort of renders the lighting just sort of from the camera that you're currently looking through. So it just sort of lights your scene a bit more generally overall, and it sort of doesn't use the in-game lighting. You'd use that if you were, say, working on a game that's really dark. Maybe you were building a game that's sort of like, you're building a dark room or something like that. The lights are all off. Rather than sort of going in the game and toggling all the lights on and off just so that you can actually edit the room, you'd probably just turn that on, or off even, so that it all lights up and you can edit it and see what you're doing, and then when you actually run the game, the lighting is used properly. So it's just, it's kind of a handy little thing. Audio on and off, same thing. If you're testing the game, will you hear its audio or will it be muted? You don't always need to hear in-game audio when you're just testing and debugging, so it comes in handy. And you've got a couple other little view options here as well. I've turned off image effects. I don't remember why, but I have, so I'm sure I had a reason. Thanks, Tom. Cheers, man. Anyway, yeah, you can turn off a bunch of stuff. So when you start adding this kind of stuff in, am I using a skybox? I'm probably not. No, there you go. You can just turn it off so it's not visible, just in case you don't need to see those things. What else? We got gizmos over here. You probably won't use this heaps depending on what you're doing, but it's just worth knowing it's here. So this basically just allows you to turn on and off different little visual icons, or you can actually add gizmos into your code as well. They're a tool that you can use for debugging your game. It's sort of handy if you need one. You'll probably stumble across how to use one pretty quickly. But yeah, that just turns them on and off. So if you create a bunch of gizmos that are tracking a bunch of stuff in your game, you know, you can turn that on, view it all, debug it, and then when you don't need to see it anymore, you can just turn it off again. Easy. You get a little filter search box there, similar to the other windows as well, so you can actually filter stuff. What, I got a cube in the scene, don't I? So if I do a cube, I think I got a cube, is that what it's called? Yeah, full screen. Yeah, cube. So that should just, it's, once again, it's kind of hard to see. Maybe if I add something else in, I probably should do that. Could have some example objects and stuff in there. Just add in a sphere. I'm going to chuck them both. Center them, just so I can actually, don't worry, I'll cover all of what I'm doing soon, don't worry guys. Right, cool, so if we just search in that little search box up there, search for cube, you can kind of see it, like it's sort of faded out the sphere a bit. It's like, oh yeah, cool, nah, like it's still showing you it's there, you can see it's in the scene, but it's not like heaps visible, so it's sort of, it's a lot more obvious when you got a lot of objects and different types and textures and things in the scene, but usually, yeah, filtering it will hide all the objects bar the ones that actually match your search results. So it's pretty handy. It can come in handy. Not just for finding objects too. Like I've had situations where, like, you might have a really complex object that's made up of a lot of different things, and you know, like right in the center somewhere is an object that you want to see and you want to be able to edit it and select it easily, but you've got all this stuff in the road, so you can use those filters to essentially hide all that stuff, and you're left with the little center object, so you can select it easily. So it's just like, it does actually come in handy. You use the search things, the search bars, you'd be surprised. And probably the final thing with the scene, I'll just make it full screen again. You got your little view widget thing over here. Using it, you can sort of just, you know, move the view around, so we can get a top view, side view, and it's using the X, Y, and Z axes, which will come, you know, you'll be using them all the time, and you know, you can sort of like just rotate the view around and look at it from below or from the side, above, etc. You can also click the little cube in the center, and it will change the view from, like, I think it's is it orthographic to perspective or whatever it is, but basically it sort of like, you can sort of see it here. If I change it back into like that perspective view, you get that, like, you can see it, you've got that three-dimensional perspective, like a depth perception going on, I guess. If you change it, it just sort of, yeah, it flattens it all out, and just sort of modifies your perspective. I think that is isometric, that's it, isometric, got it. Isometric view. Depth, yes. Hey, Donut, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, anyway, so that's your scene view. What else? We got the game view, which is also pretty self-explanatory. When you play your game, when you test it, it's going to be running in this game view. It doesn't matter where your game view is, if it's hidden from view, whatever. The moment you hit play, it's gonna come front and center. Probably the most important things on here, other than, you know, obviously it plays the game, and it is very important. You've sort of got a list of like displays that you can pick from. I never use that ever. Might come in handy, I don't know. You can also, and a lot of people aren't sort of aware of this, you can actually change the resolution you're testing in, and not only that, but you can create your own custom resolutions down here, call them whatever you like. So if you've got anything, if you're building a project for something weird, with a weird resolution, certain mobile devices have strange resolutions, you can actually custom create, or you can create a custom resolution here to test with, and so normally by default you have, yeah, this free aspect, which is sort of just like, oh yeah, I'll show you as much of the game as I can within the game window. You can adjust the aspect ratios there, which is really good to do for UI design and things like that. You want to make sure it all looks good under a bunch of different resolutions, especially if you're building for PC. So, you know, I've got some default ones in there. I've got like a 1024 by 768 that I've got, and you can see if I click that, it changes the game view. I've got a couple others like 1920 1080, which is like my default resolution, 800 by 600. I've got a couple others there as well, like some mobile resolutions that I've used in the past. which come in handy from time to time. But yeah, it's helpful. It's good to have a bunch of resolutions there, and you should be using those when you do your testing. That is very important. Yes. You can also zoom in on the game. You can. I suppose it's come in handy before. I don't really use it a lot, but it's a thing, and you can do it. So know that you can do it. You can, zoom your game view in. It doesn't affect your game camera, so it's not actually what you would see in the game. It's just like a little thing that you can do within the editor. You can sort of zoom your game in, and it's not like, it doesn't move the camera closer or anything. Like, you can sort of see that pixelation that occurs. So it's literally just like blowing the image up, scaling it up. It's a thing. You can do it. Now you know you can. Cool. You've got this button here as well, maximize on play. Usually that's on by default. What it means is basically if you play your game, it's going to go full screen. There you go. If you minimize, it should go back. If you pause, it'll go back to normal size. But it just basically means if you're testing your game's going to be full screen. Usually, you'd do that if you're sort of just having a bit of a play and you want to see how things look. You'd be doing it full screen. Otherwise, you'd probably leave it off if you want to be like, testing it and moving stuff around and looking at how your variables are behaving and things like that. So you use it a lot. Mute audio. So yeah, pretty much same sort of deal, I believe, as turning the audio on and off on that. I actually thought that was what that button up there did, so I'm probably wrong with that one, my bad. But same sort of thing, you can just, if you don't want to hear the audio when you're testing your game, you can turn it off or on. Stats just gives you a bit of useful information, including your FPS, which is probably what most people are interested in, so you can sort of see how your game's behaving. It is sort of handy. It's not very useful for like extreme debugging. If you've got anything serious going on, you're probably going to use the profiler instead. But yeah, we can cover that at a later point in time. And same again, if you've got any gizmos that are being told to draw within the game itself, you can actually turn them on and off there. Cool. Alright, that leaves, I believe, if we've gone through the game, just the inspector window, which is this little sucker over here. I have it on the right, maybe in a different position for you. All these windows could be in a different position for you, apologies. But the inspector window is also, like I said, all of these are like the core windows. You're going to be using these all the time. And building a game is just basically switching back and forth between all of these windows constantly to achieve your goals. But your inspector window is your properties of your currently selected object, whatever that might happen to be. So whether that's one of these objects in your scene, or whether you have an object down here in your text document. If you have an object down here in your project window and you select it, you'll also get its properties up here in the inspector window. Text document doesn't have a whole bunch of properties, but yeah, if it did, or if it had some text, you'd probably see it all there. That's basically your inspector. That's where you're going to be editing stuff a lot of the time. If you're not just moving or rotating an object or whatever, you're probably going to be interacting with it via the inspector window. So yeah, it's sort of an important one to have visible. So I guess ultimately, why am I sort of showing you all these windows and saying, these are the big ones, these are the important ones, and that is because you can customize your own layout. You can have Unity in what suits you best. Like, you will probably be using other windows. Like, I do have some other windows open here. I've got like Asset Store, which you can have. I've got an animator down here because I often tend to use that for animations rather than like Blender or anything. We've got services. You can have a whole bunch of different tabs, and how you use Unity is really going to be up to the kind of games you develop, and sort of what your use for it is. So really, how you lay it out's up to you, and that's kind of the thing. Like, you can sort of like drag things around if you sort of click on any of these sort of tabs up here, the tab labels, I guess, window titles, and as you drag it around, you'll see it'll sort of snap to different parts of the Unity interface. So you can sort of lay things out how you want them. It's fairly flexible as well, and you can adjust the sizing of things. You can really make it look and feel how you want, which is a really cool thing, especially when you're talking about, hey man, how you doing? Especially when you're talking about software that you're going to be spending hours in, and you're sometimes doing some really fiddly work as well, and not menial, but like you know, you're just doing the same task over and over again. Things like that. So, you know, it's important to have software that you're familiar with, you can work in efficiently, and you like the feel of. So, yeah. If you sort of get everything the way you like it, you know, you lay out all your windows. They don't have to be like mine, like I said, just put them wherever you like, whatever. You can actually come up here and you can save the layout as well. So, you know, if you open up Unity, it's probably going to usually revert back to like a default. So sometimes it's good just to, just make sure that you're saving your layout up there, and if you ever need to get it back, or you change things around a bit and you want to get back to a comfortable layout, you can just come in here and load them. I've got a bunch in here that I use for certain things, or I think a lot of these are there for by default, and there's Coop default, which I think is this one I'm looking at now. But yeah, that's basically the interface. I did, man, I did. Hey, I'm King, I noticed you, man. Sorry, dude. Thanks for stopping past, man. Appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to catch you for some Rocket League soon. Promise. It's going to happen. Man, I'm losing my voice already. I can't lose my voice already. That's going to be a problem. We still got a lot of stuff to cover. So yeah, that's basically the interface. If anyone has any questions, please feel free, fire away. If there's anything you reckon I could cover, like if you sort of, hey man, he should talk about this thing too, you know, I use it all the time, and surely it's important, then, you know, shout it out. I just did teach interface, don't I? Come on, man, keep up. But yeah, that's what we got. Yeah, that's pretty much all the interface. That's about sort of all I had noted. But yeah, look, if no one's got any questions, if you do sort of so easy to hack. Don't know, man. I can't say I've tried. Honestly, I have seen you talking about it in the past, though. I'm a little curious, and I have wondered about that before as well. Like, as you know, when you start thinking about like saving and loading systems, and or anytime like if you're talking networking and things like that, you're gonna start worrying about like, you know, how easy is it to sort of like how easy is it to break into my code? You know, could I write an algorithm to like encode someone's username into something or whatever? You know, and how easy is it for people to get access to that? Is that sort of what you're talking about? Like breaking apart the DLLs or like the program itself? Or are you talking about like hacking around things when you're developing? Because yeah, I saw your post and I wasn't quite sure. I think it was your post. Like you posted a video or something a while back. Yeah. See, I often wonder about that. I think ultimately though, man, like, and when I've seen other developers talk about this kind of stuff too, like you gotta like, especially when you're talking PC, man, like there's an element of you've got to be able to like let go of control a little bit. You're always like, yeah, but you're always gonna have people that do it, man. Like, and especially on PC, there's always gonna be people out there that are smarter than you and more capable, and they're gonna pull stuff apart. I don't know. And I suppose, yeah, alright. I suppose Unity might be easier than others. I don't know. I haven't looked into that myself. But yeah, I don't know. I suppose there could be like tricks that you as a developer as well could maybe try and implement. I don't know, man. That could be a good topic for a later point in time. It's a bit off topic though, so I might return to that one at a later point in time, eh? That's cool. No, I'd be interested to sort of hear what you what you found. Setsy man, dude, hey, welcome. Thanks for stopping past. Yeah, okay, yeah. Cheat engine. I know cheat engine. Not that I'd use it for anything or anything. I've had to use it to like try and speed up a game. I swear that was it. I swear. Never cheated. I wouldn't cheat. But yeah, hey Zetsy man, cool. This is awesome. We got what, 5 watching. I think I count as one of them. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't really know. But I do want to talk to you about that at some point. That'd be cool. But yeah, hey guys, let me know what you think about that kind of stuff too. That's always good food for thought, and a cool topic for a later point in time, I reckon. Alright, cool. Next thing I had, And this is sort of, once again, just trying to go off the agenda I had written down a little bit, similar to sort of what I had in the description. I was going to talk about working in 3D a little bit. If you've ever used any sort of like 3D software engines, game engines, or like modeling software, any of that kind of stuff, you know, it's pretty familiar stuff. But it's sort of always kind of good to know, and especially if you're new to Unity as well. Knowing how to work in that 3D space is really important. Just having a bit of a look. I was going to sort of talk about like setting up a new project and things like that, but honestly I don't think I need to. I think that's being a bit arrogant. I'm pretty sure most people can figure out how to create a new project. Like I said though, it's worth being aware that when you create a new project, you do have to make that decision between working in 2D versus working in 3D. And that sort of allows me to segue into things a little bit. So probably the most crucial element about working in 3D, or sort of working within the scene view, working on your game, moving things around, is understanding vectors, understanding positions in your game. And vectors are really important, and this is, what can you even do? You can do a lot in 2D, man. 2D is fantastic. I love 2D. It's my favorite thing to work in, actually. Depends. I've sort of been favouring 3D a little bit more lately, but no, 2D's good. I'm not going to hear that. I don't want to hear it. But basically, yeah, like when you're setting up your project, if you're setting it up in 2D or 3D, it usually dictates what sort of vectors you're going to be using. You have your vector 2s, which are essentially just, your X and Y axis, I believe, which is left, right, and up and down. And you have your vector 3s, which are, like the name suggests, 3-axis, X, Y, Z, which is sort of like your, left, right, back, forward, and up and down. So 3D versus 2D. And so, yep, spot on, X, Y, Z. So probably another way to look at it. So I suppose how do the vectors equal a position? They can equal a lot of things. Like a vector can also equal, a direction, and things like that, which is a bit tricky. Sorry, phone just went off. But for now, we'll keep it simple, man. Vectors are essentially just a position in your game world. Probably best represented on the cube here. We've got our transform. I'm just going to look at the position. For now, you have your X, your Y, and your Z axis. So at the moment, it's still an isometric. I'll just go back into perspective. So probably the best way to look at a vector is, I have heard that, yes. But the best way to look at a vector is essentially, it's your place in the world. And the way it works that out is your world's broken up into those 3 axes. If you're in 3D, if it's 2D, it's the 2. But you have your x-axis, which is if we're looking at that window. I don't think this is going to work out, but you've got your x-axis running that way, your y-axis running that way. So from here to here, from here to here, but also that z-axis running downwards as well, sort of coming up through those 2 axes. So when you give an object a position, you're usually giving it a vector 3 or a vector. You're telling it, okay, you are positioned on the x-axis at point, and then you give it its value. So if you want it to be, say, getting there. So think of your game world. Your game world has a center point. That point is 0. 0 on the x-axis. Video is being seen on a 2D screen. Yeah. So your 0. You'd have 0 on your x-axis, 0 on your y-axis, 0 on your z-axis is your very center of the world. Let's keep things really simple. Let's just work on the x-axis at the moment. If we're looking at our x-axis, which we want to do this way, if I want an object to move, say, a little bit to the right, in this case, my x-axis, negative on my x-axis is going to represent left from my perspective, so I'm looking at the cube. If I give it a positive x value, it's going to go to the right, because here's your 0 point on x. As you go this way, it's negative, so 0. This becomes -1, -2, -3, blah 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 blah, and this becomes +1, +2, +3, etc. So we can see this with the cube. If I grab this cube, it's currently sitting at a position of 0 on the x-axis. I give it a value of 2. It's going to move 2 units to the right. Once again, right's a relative term because that's from my perspective. I'm looking at this cube with its x-axis running this way, sort of, I want to say parallel to me, to my x-axis. So that's what makes it left and right. It's probably the wrong way to look at it. Like there is not really a left and a right. I mean, there's a left and a right relative to the object or relative to the perspective, but otherwise you're dealing with things. You wouldn't say, okay, that object is now 2 units to the right. You say that object is now 2 units plus on x. It's now 2 units on the positive on the x-axis. It's now 2 units more along the x-axis, whatever, but it hasn't moved to the right. It's moved plus 2 on x. So it's sort of the same with all 3. So if you wanted an object to be positioned excuse me, at a certain point, you would give it that point as a vector. You would tell it, okay, where is that point on the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. That gives you its position, sort of left, right, back, forward, and up and down. As a point in the game world, it's sort of like a coordinate. Well, it's a coordinate within your game world, and that's sort of how you tend to work with things. So most of the time, when you're editing an object in 3D space, you'll be moving it around in the scene view, and you'll be doing it by like dragging it around, whether that's snapping to an object or whether you're just like freehanding it and being a bit of a cowboy and winging things. Whatever, you can do it that way, or you'll be coming up here and you'll be giving it a position manually. You'll be saying, all right, I want you in dead center of the world, so go to 0, 0, 0, or whatever. They are floats as well, so I could give it a value of 1.9999. I don't think that actually, well, yeah, it wouldn't be making any difference by that point, but you can do it. So you can give it 1.5 or 1.75 or 1.9, 1.8, 1.88, whatever. Vectors can get really, really small, as in to insane decimal places. That's worth knowing, because if you're ever comparing vectors, that can get a bit painful sometimes. If something's off by like 0.4 of a decimal place, it will evaluate as false, kind of thing. Not worth worrying about at this point in time, but yes, so when you're talking 3D, the wrong way to look at things is to look at things relative to your perspective. The right way to look at things is relative to the world itself. And that's what a vector is. You're giving an object a position relative to the game world, relative to its center, to 0. So you're saying, where is this object? Here is 0. It's the center of my game world. It is 0. Where is this object? Okay, it's 5 units on X from center. It's 3 units Y from center. It's 2 units Z. So that's sort of that's where that coordinate comes in. Why you have that value. You will sort of tend to naturally think of them as left, right, back, forward, up, down, whatever. But that might lead you to a few pitfalls and things when you're doing a bit of coding. So this is just one game object, right? Thousands of these for a game. Yeah, dude. Like I don't know. Like it's one of those things. If you get to the point where you're editing thousands and thousands of game objects, and or like even just like more than tens and tens, yeah, usually it means there's probably a better way to do things. Anyway, yeah, but I don't know. There's ways around things. You figure it out, and your code accounts for inefficiency in that regard. But yes, so what did I have for that? So that's sort of. Vectors are important. You will use them a lot. Like I said, they are generally your object's position, but you can also use it for, like I said, a direction. You can use it for rotation, sort of, kind of, but you'll be using that vector 3 format a lot. That 3-axis, giving it an x, a y, and a z value. Those 3 values themselves, the x, the y, and the z-axis, for any object's transform is really important. so you'll be using them a lot. And that's sort of how they relate to the position. Essentially, you are saying, here is this object's position relative to the center of my game world. When we get a bit more into it as well, there's also differences in these things. Like you can have relative and world position and things like that, and that makes things fun. But don't worry too much about that. Vectors are pretty cool. They're just essentially 3 points and a coordinate system that give your objects the ability to know where they are and to move around in your game world. Alright. Excuse me. Tasty Coke. Alright, so interacting with objects in the scene. Pretty straightforward. Once again, most beginners tutorials and stuff that you do in Unity will cover this. It's pretty good stuff to always know though, like you saw me doing before. So probably the 3 main things that you'll be doing within your scene view are moving objects around or translating them. So when you move an object left and right, up and down, etc., etc., you're just basically editing those 3 values, its position within its transform. You have your little widget here that you can grab onto and you can move it around. Like I said, you can edit the values directly to tell it where to go. Or what else? I think that's it. Oh, you can grab these as well. Like you can click on these and it sort of just gives you a bit of a freer way of dragging things around on only that one axis. There's a couple other little hotkeys you can use. Like I think if you hold Shift, is it Shift? Control, that's it. Control snaps to increments, which you can change. So I think that's snapping to like 1 unit. So yeah, it is. It's moving 1 unit whenever I hold Control down and drag it around. I can change that. I think if I go to Edit, Snap Settings, you can change how much it snaps by. So if I only want it to snap by 0.5 of a unit on whatever axis, you can do this per axis, which is pretty cool too. Same as scaling and rotation, you can give it individual values for each. So there we go. If I now hold Control, it's snapping in 0.5 increments instead of 1. You can sort of see that going on up here with its X value, because that's what I'm dragging on, is the X axis. It's going in little 0.5 increments there. Yeah, dude. Definitely. So if I keep right clicking because that's Blender, sorry. You can basically like any sort of selection system, you know, you hold down Shift, you can select multiple objects. Control works too. Yeah, spot on. But then when you do, the thing that's probably worth noting is the little widget's going to move to the center of your selected object. So if we've got a bunch of them, let's duplicate, and yeah, that's it. I'm just creating a few extra cubes. If I now select all these, should just do it here, it's easier. So there you go, you can actually do it via the hierarchy too. I don't think you can, no, you can't drag a selection box, but you can, you know, do that and deselect with Control, Shift to select like all of them, or Control for individuals. If I select them all, you'll see the widget like goes to the center point of all of those objects. It's just worth knowing it does that, because it can sort of trip you up a little bit. But yeah, if we now just grab it, it will move all of them as well relative to each other. So that'll make your life a lot easier too, man. And like I said, you can sort of filter here as well. So if we do a bit of a, oh yeah, that's cool. All right, well we only want to select the cubes. We filtered. It's only showing the cubes. We can now, and move all of them and whatever. If we only want to grab them, you know, that kind of thing. So yes, you definitely can. You definitely can, and you will often, and it will be very helpful. Delete those. Cube. I'm just gonna put my cube back where he was. Okay. Sweet. So it's pretty straightforward. Like you get one of those things. It probably feels a bit awkward at first, but it will sort itself out over time. How do you change the skybox? He says. I think it's via your camera. Hang on, let me have a look. Skybox. I never use a skybox, is probably why. Just having a quick look. Would have been under like lighting settings actually. So that's probably a point, something I didn't show you earlier. You can actually add in new tabs, which I thought lighting was there, but maybe it's not. Maybe I need to do it through, there it is, settings. There we go, cool. Sorry, that took me a little bit longer than I thought. I'm just going to drag that in so we can actually look at it. Where's my little, there it is, come here. Cool, yeah, so just real quick, I won't, no, you're right, man, we got it. I won't cover it too quick because it's a bit off topic for the moment, but yeah, what was that? That was, you just got to go, yeah, so you got to go into your lighting settings. So you go into your window, if you don't have this tab open already. Don't think it was there under, no, it wasn't, doesn't matter though. You just go window, there should be lighting settings. You can see it there, your skybox materials, so you can get like different types. Like I said though, I don't usually play with, like, I don't often do a lot of work in 3D, and when I do, it's not usually first person and things. So I don't use skyboxes a lot. You're welcome, man. Yeah, you can do it on camera. You're right, buddy. I'm just going to close that tab. Lighting you'll use as well. I'm just going to be cheeky while we're here. Another cool little thing. If you ever like muck around with lighting heaps, where is it? There's like a setting here somewhere. I'm going a bit off topic, sorry. Maybe it's not in here. Maybe I'm going crazy. Maybe they've changed it. That's possible too. You know what? I'm gonna shut up because that setting's not where I thought it was. So it doesn't matter. Anyway, cool. Alright. But yes, there's your skybox. You can sort of change stuff on the camera too. What I usually do, like for most of my games, I actually just use a solid color, which is like literally what you see here. You can see in the game view, it's just changed it to that, and I can, make it white, black, whatever. Could understand if you didn't want to do that though. That's pretty cool. Cool. Alright, what are we? Yeah, cool. So, we've seen that we can indeed. Spot on. Oh yeah. Your camera's got a skybox. Yes. Good call, man. You can indeed. Where is it? Oh, it's well, yeah. You're not really gonna see that, are you? Because it's the same one. But yeah, as Tom pointed out, you can actually just add a custom skybox component to your camera. I was going to talk about adding components and stuff in a bit, so hey, maybe we'll come back to that one. Good stuff. Nice work, dude. He's also put some. Yeah, hey, right? Like, but yeah, he's also put some info in the chat, so have a bit of a look if you're curious about that. Right. What else? Okay, cool. So we've seen that we can move objects around. We've seen that we can do them all at once as well. Next thing I'm going to quickly talk about, I'm going to talk about scaling first, just because rotating is can get complex, and I might end up talking about it for a bit. Scaling's simple. It's just the size of the object relative to the game world. So the cubes by default are 1 unit by 1 unit in size, at least these ones that you add through the editor. The scale is just basically saying, yep, cool, the object is 100% scale, so it's normal default scale, normal size. When I say scale, we're talking size. And like the position, we can actually edit the scale of the object as a vector 3. So we're giving it 3 values on its x, its y, and its z axis. So if I actually make the cube 2 on x, we're going to see that happen. It's now going to, I'm going to make it 5, just to make it more obvious. But it's going to increase the size of that object another 4 times, so it's now 500%, but only on the x-axis. So it's still 1 by 1 on y, which is the up-down there. I was calling z up-down before, my bad. I think it is with Blender. Ugh, this is bad. But yeah, your y-axis is still only 1 unit, so from the bottom of the object to the top of the object is only 1 unit in size. And the z-axis, which is this one here, is the same again. So you can also do that. That's alright. Let's now increase the y-axis by 5. So it's going to be 5 units tall, 5 units long, but still only 1 unit sort of deep. We can now do that. 5. Let's make it 5. It's now a cube again. It's equal sizes on all 3 axes, all 3 sides. So that's basically a scale. Like all the others, it can be can go down to rather minute decimal places. Usually you shouldn't need to play too much with it. Scales, like, it's just one of those things. Like, yeah, you can make objects bigger and smaller. You know, usually your model size and like when the object's being modeled and stuff will dictate a lot of that, as well as the scale of your world and things like this. There's other ways to edit the size of objects without actually touching the transform scale. And it's handy as well, like you can adjust that like any other vector, so you can actually smoothly increase it or decrease it, make an object like grow bigger in size or smaller in size, like smoothly, so not just like bang, but like whoop kind of thing. Scale's good, it's handy. Now you know you can do that. You can also do it, that's probably an important thing as well, your little toolbar, what do I call them, little icons up here, all your different types of manipulation tools, ways of modifying the objects within your game world, you can access them all up here, so you can actually change the different tools. So at the moment I'm in the move tool, which is giving me those 3 little arrows on each axis, and obviously when I use it, it moves the object, hence move tool. There's the rotate tool, which will rotate the object. There's the scale tool, which is going to give you these, I might zoom in, sorry, I was a bit impolite. It's going to give you these 3 little knobbly things. But yeah, if you click on those, it's basically going to do what we were doing manually with those values before. It just allows you to like drag them around and increase the scale of those objects on all of the axes at once. And you can also click the center and drag to increase them all relative to each other, or decrease, whatever. I'm just going to set that back to 1. So it's now a cube again. And that is scale. What have we got here? We've got a couple other tools. Rect tool. Yeah. This is a new one that got added, I say recently, but it was probably like a year ago now or so. I can't quite remember. But it's an all-in-one. So just sort of like, you can do all those things. You can scale, you can rotate, you can move, all in just one tool. You tend to find, like, after a while, you may not actually use these that often. Like, when you want to be precise, you'll be using these values manually, so you don't really use these tools that often. I don't, at least. You might, I don't know. Just depends how you work, really. I don't think I've ever really used that since it came out, but once again, I'm a traditionalist. It could just be because I wasn't used to using it that I don't use it. Might be incredibly handy. Try it out. I don't know. Cool. So we can scale an object, much the same as moving it around. It's in the scene. We can adjust a vector 3. Adjusting the vector 3 adjusts the size of the object on those 3 different axes, so it just alters its scale within the world. Right, and finally we can rotate the object as well. I'm just going to center him, bring him over, there we go. Rotating is as it sounds. You can basically just turn the object around, so it keeps its pivot, like it'll retain its position within the world. It will just sort of adjust the direction that it's facing, and like all the other, like the other values, the position and the scale, you can adjust that as a vector 3. So like everything else, you can adjust it smoothly, you can change it in your code, you can play around with it, make it tiny little decimal places. So it's just another way of editing sort of where your object's positioned and rotated within your world, really. And you can do that, using the tools. So if you know the axis you want to rotate it on, you can do it that way. The tool's rather imprecise, so you can also do the hold control to snap. And that's the point as well, the snapping works with all of these tools. You can snap scale, you can snap rotation, everything, etc. And you can edit it all through those snap settings, as we saw. You can also edit those values manually by adjusting the values in the transform component. So yeah, I wanted its default rotation, I'll just put it back to 0. You know, if I want to rotate it 90 degrees on X, which isn't going to look any different because it's a cube, but you get the idea. Maybe 45, rotate it to 45 degrees. You can see it sort of changes around there. Yeah, just another way of modifying your objects. And yeah, so that's what else. There's also some hotkeys. What is it? W-E-R-T. So basically, yeah, your QWERTY all the way to Y. We'll just go through those tools. So Q, W, E, R, T, and Y. Bam. Easy. Easy peasy. Alright, cool. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. This sucks. Alright, cool. Next part's probably going to be a bit more fun for me. We're going to actually talk about writing a bit of code, sort of. I'm not going to cover anything in particular. I'm just going to sort of just drag that up a little bit. Now, it sort of depends as well. I use Visual Studio for my code. That's what I installed along with Unity. You might be using Mono Develop still, maybe. You might have a custom text editor, whatever. I use Visual Studio though, so if I give any little like, hey, this hotkey does this or whatever, it's really only relevant to Visual Studio, so you know, just adapt it as needed. I prefer Visual Studio. I think it's just a bit better. The interface can be a bit annoying, like can get a bit clunky. A lot of people have said to me, you know, like, oh, they find it too slow and it takes a while to load and blah blah blah, and that's true, not going to deny that. But it has a lot of good little features in it as well, like a lot of the text completion and auto completion and stuff like that's just fantastic. So I find I can write code a lot faster with Visual Studio than I can with most other things, most other text editors. So you know, just whatever works for you. I like it though, so I'm going to recommend it. We're going to create a quick C# script. Most of the code I do is going to be C#. I can do a bit of JavaScript, but really I believe you should be learning C# if you're learning Unity. I think it's a better option for many reasons. Happy to discuss that one day. Not right now, we could go on for ages. But if you want to create a script, yeah, we just come in here, right click in the project view. I think you can also do it. You can do it by game object, component, no, assets, yeah. So you can do it via assets, create a C# script, whatever. You could also just write it in your text editor and then save it in that assets folder, and it'll appear as well. I'm just going to do it this way, it's easier. I'm just going to create one. New behavior script, I'm going to call it something else. I'm going to call it Cube is awesome, because, you know, why not? Run that. So this is sort of, you'll see this, it takes a little bit for me. I don't usually, whoops, open on the other window, the other monitor, my bad. Still sort of loading. I'll drag it over as soon as it's finished. I don't usually show this in videos because it does take a while, so usually what I'll do in a video, I'll actually run Visual Studio ahead of time, open a script, Coop. I don't even remember, man, it was so many years ago. Like, I think it was just, I had to join a chat room once. It was like one of the first websites I ever opened, like back when you had to know the address of a website and there were no search engines and stuff. I just like went to this website and had a chat room, and it's like, pick a username, so I came up with Kupala. Like, that's it, that was literally it. It was that exciting. But anyway, when I do a video, because Visual Studio takes so long to open, I'll normally create a script, excuse me, I'll create my scripts ahead of time, open them up and just have them minimized, because it does take that long to open. Like, you saw how long it took. But yeah, once it's open, like if you keep it open, your scripts will open a lot quicker. So it's just sort of knowing its little quirks and stuff like that. And when you know them, it's a lot better off. So here we have like a default script as Unity will generally create them. For me, it's open in Visual Studio. The default Visual Studio instance that Unity runs and installs is pretty, not bare bones, but it has a lot of stuff hidden. Like you would normally. You could normally have quite a few other windows open, and you'd have like a project view and a folder structure and blah 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 blah. But yeah, but you don't have that with this. It's merely just for writing these little scripts that Unity uses. And when you run your first one, it will give you these two little methods to begin with, your start and your update. If you've written any code, you'll be very familiar with them. Your start function just runs at start, surprise, surprise. And your update function just runs every frame, so it runs once per frame.
and you'll be putting the majority of your code into these, or you'll be writing your own little functions and things like that. But your script will generally look a bit like this. So you'll have it customized and personalized a little bit. But usually there's a structure to all this. Your code will always follow a certain format. But this is sort of what the text editor looks like as well, and what to expect. If you've not really done any code before as well, bear with me, I'm just going to think of something. I'm just going to write anything. Because we were talking about vectors, I thought it'd be cool. So you can sort of see there as well, the text editor helps you out a lot. Most text editors will do this. They'll actually highlight certain words based upon what that word is. So what its class of object is, I guess, or whether, or what type. So, this is where I need Jessica. You can help me out with the terminology. Essentially, it's just basically saying, like, I know what this is. I recognize it. I know how it's used, and it highlights it for you. So it's kind of cool to pay attention to that stuff, like the syntax highlighting and formatting and things like that, because it'll actually help you a lot. Like a lot of things in your code, they relate to classes and objects and certain things that all have properties. And you interact with them all the same way, and you can sort of learn to sort of identify that you may have a bunch of things that are all called something different, but they're all the same type of thing, and they may all be they may all work a bit different, but they're all essentially the same kind of thing. So if you know how to use one, you'll know how to use another, and generally your text editor will recognize that and will say, okay, cool, I know that you're that type of thing. I'm going to highlight you one color, and every other thing that is like you, I'm going to make the same color. Even though they're going to have different names and different functions and things like that, they're all still the same type of thing. So it's going to use color highlighting to represent that. So knowing how your text editor works and sort of knowing the little differences is going to help you out a lot. There's probably not a lot more I really need to say about that. It's pretty straightforward. Like Visual Studio's got a lot of stuff going on. Like you can do a lot with it, and I actually use it for a lot of other projects as well, not just Unity. You do use it for a lot of other code, and I use it for a lot of other, like, set up other development environments and things like that. It's really complex. You can do a lot with it. I'm not going to cover all that now. We'd be here for days. But you should use it. It is really helpful. It's helpful not just for Unity. Like I said, it's helpful for a lot of code. I like it. I recommend it. And I'm going to delete that. Cool. Alright, cool. Sorry, hopefully you guys can still hear me okay. I feel like my voice is getting quieter. Alright, cool. We're getting to the end of the beginners stuff. What do we got? Yeah, that's true. You shouldn't really, I don't know, update has its place. Like there's, I don't know, it's good for, I think it's good for checking things. I don't think it's good for doing things. It's probably the best way to look at update. And even then it depends what you're checking. Like if you've just got to remember update is literally every frame. So you can use it, you just need to make sure that the code you put, different functions, different uses. But yeah, it's important to like remember that if you put code in update, anything you put in there, it has to be efficient, and you've got to think to yourself, do you really need this code to run every single frame? If it's something and it's like it's just checking something that's only going to happen once in a while, yeah, okay, you probably could check every frame, but you don't really need to, kind of thing, and it's just wasting resources. Like, if you're making small projects and things like that, it doesn't really matter. Like, people get so hung up about the performance of their games well before they even have to worry about it. So I think I'm always going to highlight that. You really don't need to worry about a problem until it kind of becomes a problem, but yeah, you're kind of right. Like, it's just always be thinking, if you're chucking stuff in update, think to yourself, does this need to be run every frame? If there's any doubt in your mind, then the answer is probably no, don't. So work out another way to do it. And there are other ways. There's some cool things you can do. So we'll get to that when we need to. Cool. Next section, common components. Oh, man, we're flying through this. You guys are awesome. You ask like barely any questions. You ask good questions actually. So yeah, thanks for helping. That's great. Common components. All right, I'm gonna quickly try and cover some of the pretty much the standard stuff you're gonna be seeing all the time. These are the little things that get attached to your object. They're essentially classes, I guess. But for our purposes, yep, they're Unity. We call them a component. It's just like it's a I guess like a module, I guess, that gets attached to your object, and it can basically do anything. It can be anything. It can be a script, or they're generally code of some kind, but generally they'll contain like a bunch of data. They'll have properties you can edit. They'll generally impact your object in some way. So some basic components that we can see on the screen at the moment. I've got the cube selected. We've got the transform component, which, like we saw before, that's basically the component that contains, and every single object in your game world is going to, every object in your scene that gets added to your game is going to have one of these, a transform component, because any object in the scene has to have a position. It has to know where it is in the game world. But like we saw, it handles the object's position, rotation, and scale, and it does that by basically, yeah, just retaining these three vectors, and it's communicating with the game and the game engine and the game world, and it's saying, okay, these are the values I have in this component, so that dictates where I am in the world and where I'm facing and how big I am or small I am or whatever. But yeah, transform is a component. It's a very important one, and that's what it does. It handles the position, the rotation, and the scale. Pretty straightforward. A mesh filter, which is the next one down in the cube, is also quite an important one. You're going to see that a lot. So the mesh filter is basically, so it's not the renderer. What's the filter? The filter is essentially providing the frame for any three-dimensional model in your game. The mesh filter component is how you use it is you're going to be, if you have an object in your game world, like a 3D object. Let's say you've created a player, character, model, you add an object to your world, you would add a mesh filter and you would apply that model. So in this case it has a cube applied. If I change that to, say, let's make it a cylinder, you can see the model changes. So your mesh filter basically dictates what model, what mesh, as they're referred to, is being applied to this object. G'day mate, I'm going to try and get your name right. Basavaraj. G'day mate. Welcome, thanks for coming past, dude. But yeah, if you change the mesh filter, so the mesh that's applied to it, it's going to change the model that's being applied to that object. So it's a three-dimensional thing. You'll have different components to be working in 2D. I think I can show you those. We might cover those. Here we go. But that's what that does. The mesh filter is really important for any three-dimensional object. It's going to have one of these, and it just tells it what model it's using. Next, I'll go to the mesh renderer next, because that kind of goes hand in hand with the mesh filter. The mesh renderer, what does it do? So the mesh renderer basically it tells the game engine what properties to render the mesh with. So what texture is it going to have, so what materials are applied to it, how does lighting affect it. We can sort of see all that here. Like I said, I'm not going to cover all the individual settings and properties of each component, just sort of give you a rough rundown on what it does. But yeah, so usually if you create a brand new object, I could probably show you that. If I create an empty object, which I'm going to call, I'm just going to call it another cube, give it a name up here. It's probably an important thing. I'll center it, bring it over here a bit. Look, not that far. You can go over there actually. And so yeah, I've deselected that empty object, so I can't see it. So I've got to actually get it via the hierarchy window here. So there it is. It's invisible. We can't actually see it. It's just an empty object in our world. It's an entity. It has a position. All it has is a transform. So it has a position, a rotation, and a scale. None of it really matters though. It's all invisible. You can't see it. What am I adding to this again? I'm adding a mesh filter. So we're actually gonna, if we add a mesh filter, which I just did there via add component, could have also done it via this menu up here with the object selected. If you add anything via the component menu, it's going to add it to your selected object, but I did it this way, add component, and then just sort of search for what you want, or you can go through the list. I find searching helps, you know, you just, bam, there it is, remembers it for next time too, which is helpful. We're going to give this object, it's going to be another cube, so the mesh, I'm going to give it a cube. That didn't do anything because I need render, did I get that right? I did, I think. I need a mesh renderer. So the moment that applies, so yeah, like I said, so the mesh filter's telling the game, okay, cool, this is the model that this object is going to use. Doesn't know how to draw it though, doesn't know how to display it or really what to do with it. It knows what its dimensions are and it's where its points are and its space within the world, but it doesn't know how to show you that. So that's where the renderer comes in. The renderer just basically says, alright, cool, the filter's telling me that this is the model that I've got, this is what it looks like. I'm going to tell the game how to actually give that object, how to draw the object within the game, how to render it. So yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. You can see it says lovely pink as well. I haven't actually applied a material to it, and that's why it's doing that. If I'll give it default diffuse, there you go. Bam! So that's the two little mesh components. What was the third one? It's gosh, I can never remember what they have. The box collider. Colliders, yes. Colliders are really important. Collider is sort of, as the name suggests, a collider acts as like it's a bounding box. It's a collider. I forget that a lot of gamers nowadays are actually quite familiar with that term. You guys probably know what colliders are, even if you're not familiar with Unity. But it just gives the object like a physical, no, not a physical presence, because that's something else, but it gives the object sort of a boundary. Well, it does. It gives the object boundaries. And as part of its function, you can use a collider to determine if any object has actually hit the object, passed through it, or collided with it. Works with the game engine's physics. You will use them a lot. It's pretty handy to know sort of how they work. So you know, do a bit of reading up on those if you need to. But they're pretty straightforward. Like you apply one to an object. Generally, by default, it will. If you apply a box collider, and there's lots of different colliders worth mentioning, as you can see here. Most pretty straightforward, like box collider, yeah, apply to a cube, capsule, apply to a capsule, you know, sphere, etc. I'm sure you can figure out most of that. Sometimes you'll use them for different things, but you know, generally it's pretty straightforward. So we've got a box collider applied. When you apply it, it'll actually make the size of the collider try as best it can to fit the size of the object's mesh. So in this case it's a cube, it's not hard, it knows how to do it. If we wanted to, we could actually edit it though, so we can see the little edit controller button here. I can actually make it a little bit bigger. So that's essentially making the game think that object is taking up sort of all that space there when it's kind of not. Like it's drawing the object there, the mesh itself is only that big, it's only being rendered there, but it now has a boundary, it has a collider that stretches sort of into that extra space. So that technically would sort of block an object if it was designed to block that object. Cool, and so yeah, by editing it, all we're doing is essentially editing these these 6 values down here. Rarely, I think, will I edit the center manually. I'll often do the size. Like the size is pretty straightforward, you know, making it 2 times as big, that kind of thing. I won't usually edit the center, but usually you can do that yourself just using the edit controller button there. I find that a lot easier personally. Up to you. What other kind of components have we got? Those are probably some of the big ones. You're going to be using those 3 at least a lot. Physics, yeah, here we go. How about a rigid body? Now, rigid bodies are complex. They're essentially a component that you add to an object to give it physical properties within the game world. It essentially is just a big collection of code that Unity have written to allow you to easily just add a sort of out-of-the-box physical state to an object, allow an object to have sort of physical properties easily. They have a lot of other uses, but generally you add a rigid body to an object to give it a physical properties within your world. So whether that's gravity, whether it needs to collide with other objects. So generally you'll need a rigid body if you want it to collide with things, or you'll need to code that stuff up manually yourself. But if we run the game, we can actually see right there that cube dropped, and that's because that rigid body is applied. It's using gravity. If I turn that off and run the game, it's not going to fall, it's just going to sit there. I think if I run into it, no, that's not going to work. That needs a rigid body as well, I think, which it doesn't have. So you can see there, that's not colliding. Oh, maybe it is. Okay. I love when it proves me wrong. But essentially, yeah, the cube's reacting. It's reacting weird because you probably shouldn't edit letters, dude. Probably shouldn't edit objects like this. But essentially it now has physical properties, and it's behaving like it has physical properties. It's responding, it's colliding with objects, it's now moving off laters. If I give it gravity again, bye. Yeah, you get the idea. That's a rigid body. There's a lot to them. So like I said, that's one simple little property. You've got mass drag, angular drag. If you find you're having to edit those and play with those a lot, you're probably doing a bit of an interesting game that's got some interesting physics in it. You shouldn't hopefully have to worry about this kind of stuff too often, but yeah, it's good just knowing you can do these things. It is kinematic as well. Essentially removes. It allows you to apply a rigid body to an object, but without actually having those physical properties applied. Do a bit of reading on that. If you're playing with that, make sure you understand what it does, because it can be a pain. Another interesting thing is the constraints. So you can actually freeze the properties of an object. I'm trying to think how best to represent this. So we've got gravity on at the moment. So we can see that we can actually freeze the position and freeze the rotation. If I don't want that object's position to change on on one of these axes, I can actually tell it, all right, freeze it on the z-axis, not z. Z's not up and down. Y is. That's right. So if I click play, gravity's going to try and work, but I've told it not to actually move on the y-axis. I'm not letting it. So it's just going to sit there. If I turn that off, gravity's going to work. It's allowed to move on the y-axis again. Same sort of goes for the others. Like if you do a freeze position on the x-axis, I can move it around. That's sort of cheating a little bit. It's kind of hard to represent that, but the same sort of thing applies. Like if I was to freeze all three of those axes, the object still has the physical properties within the world. It still exists. Other things wouldn't be able to pass through it, but there is nothing, nothing short of code and me manually moving it is the only way I can now move that object. That's going to freeze it and prevent any physical interactions from the game engine from actually changing the object's X, Y, or Z axis. Same goes for rotation. Like the rigid body will also handle rotation in terms of physics. If something runs into an object, it will spin. If it's meant to. You can do that. You can also, using the constraints on a rigid body, you can also freeze the X, Y, and Z rotation of an object. So if something runs into it, as an example, you might freeze the rotation, but not the position. So if something runs into an object, it's not going to rotate, it's just going to keep its exact rotation and just move off to the side. So it's not a great, I don't know why you do that, but you can. That's sort of how it works. Cool. How are we going, guys? Are we pretty happy? Like, first of all, we're an hour and 25 in, so good on you for sticking around. Thank you. But yeah, I just want to make sure we're doing okay. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I'll admit that now. I want to say we're about halfway. Yeah, just checking to make sure we're all good, we're all happy, no questions, everything's good. I'm probably going to cover a couple of things. We'll have a quick break for like maybe 5-10 minutes just so I can run to the toilet, refill my drink. Refill. All that good stuff. When I do, I'll just sort of blank screen and mute the mic, and I'll run off real quick and come back. We've only got a couple more things to go, and then we'll be done with the beginner stuff. Coming up next, I'm going to do the Unity FX and tricks. We'll try and cover that real quick. How long have we been going for? Hour and a half, a bit longer than I anticipated. Once again though guys, shout out any questions you got, hit me with them when you want. Feel free to also note them. I'm going to try and give us a bit of Q&A time at the end as well, so yeah, it's up to you. If you don't want to interrupt, feel free, we'll get to it. Okay, next up, where are we looking at? I've shown you how to attach components. That was actually the next thing, so that's fantastic. Probably the only thing worth really covering, and you don't need to remember this exactly, but add a rigid body. I'm just gonna show you real quick that you can also do this via script. So if I want to add an object to, if I want to add a component to one of these objects, delete the cube. I'm just going to leave the another cube. I can also do that via a script. So come on Visual Studio. So I closed it. See, shouldn't have done that. That was dumb. Now I gotta wait for it. This is what I mean by, like, yeah, it's got its quirks. Alright, so nothing complex, and don't worry too much about the code that I'm writing. All you need to really worry about is that I am going to run some code as soon as the game starts, and all that code is going to do is add a rigid body to the cube. Which I think is as simple as... Oh man, I'm going to have to Google it now, you watch. Add component. Because I can't remember how to do it. Oh, I've got to do the game object. So it'd be what? This. Add component? No, this game object. Add component. That helps. And I should just be able to do a rigid body. I think that's going to work. Let's find out. Today. Alright, so if I drag and drop that script onto another cube and run it, when it runs, I've still got a rigid... Oh, well, I applied a rigid body. Of course. Latest cube, that's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to fall. It doesn't have a rigid body attached currently. We've only got that script. If we run the game, I'm going to keep it highlighted. If you just sort of watch the inspector, you'll see it. Rigid body, pop, laters, see you dude. Yeah. So, my only just really pointing that out because, like, unless you sort of go looking for it, you may not know you can do that. But you can. You can add components via code, just in much the same way that you can also access them and modify them and do whatever you want. Because components really are just code. They're just classes that exist within Unity. And you can access all of them. Basically, if it's a little property that you can already see under the component when it's attached to an object, like for example the transform, the position, we can access the position value, we can access its X, its Y, its Z. Same goes for the mesh renderer. If we want to have a look at, if we want to be able to access the receive shadows, we can turn that on and off through code. All of this is accessible through code. Very solution there's no ground. Can you make a surface onto which it falls and stays? Yes. Easy. Just create another cube. It's got a collider. We'll add a rigid body. No, I don't need to add a rigid body to it. I'm going to make it massive. Just going to make it 10 by 10. I'm going to leave the y-axis because I don't want it to be tall. Just drop that a bit. It should stay because it's got the collider. If it falls through, it may need a rigid body. Huh. Yeah, no, it made a liar out of it. Where is the collider? Yeah, no, it's weird. Nah. Because you could freeze it. I think if you use QnA, actually, it's going to probably just pass through it anyway. I'm going to do that. Yeah, so QnA just makes it have no physical properties. Turn off use gravity. It'll probably knock it, actually, if it hits. It's probably going to, like, send it downwards. Maybe? Hang on. Did I turn the script off? It doesn't. Doesn't need a rigid body. I'm being stupid. I don't have a collider on the cube. Is why I never added a collider. This is the best part. This is the best part about game dev, man. So if I add a collider to it, I bet you it's going to stop now. I think I took the rigid body off. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, the colliders act as a barrier. They give it boundaries and say to physical object, or say to the physics within the game engine, an object should collide with me, with this point, with this boundary. Should not be able to go past this point. Objects often can. You can squish them into each other. That's often fun, and then they'll shoot out, and God knows where. But yeah, generally you need a collider and a rigid body to have some sort of physical interaction occurring. Yeah, just a nice flat. Like, you could do anything. You could probably chuck a plane there, like just a flat plane. You could have a sphere, whatever. As long as it's got a collider, it should interact with it. We got touching components. Alright, cool. This next one, it's going to be a bit of fun. Next topic's project management. So this is a bit hard because I don't have like a whole bunch of stuff here. I might even... I'm just going to copy in a bunch of stuff from another project. It's probably an easy way to do it. Bear with me. Find one first. Someone's going to have a lot of stuff in it. I have a lot of projects. Like I have a lot of projects in my projects folder. Way too many. Here we go. It's really old. I can't use that. What's this got? This will do. Just an old project. Bear with me, and I'm just going to dump a whole bunch of stuff in that project folder. Here we go. It's all getting sucked in now. You have a look down the project window. That's about to, not explode. So it's just like some stuff that I made ages ago. It's like a little dungeon crawler or something. It's not going to work because I've only just imported the assets. I haven't actually opened the project. Wow, look at those prefabs. Wow, I created a lot of prefabs. Go me. But yeah, anyway, we can see we've got a lot of stuff going on here. Now, I'm probably not going to show you anything you don't already know. No real tricks in this regard. But just some general advice in that, and this is probably because, I get this all the time. I very often look at projects for other people. I get a lot of people coming in and asking me questions and things like that, and that's cool, and I don't mind doing it. And if I've got time, I'm always happy to. But the one thing that I really see a lot of is people sending the projects, and they are just full of so much stuff. And I'm sorry if any of you guys have got projects like we've all had projects like this, and I get it, and they get that way. And big projects, over time, projects will get really cluttered, and they will get big. But when I have someone send me a project and say, hey man, I've been working on this for not even a month, or I've just started and I'm having this problem, and I open the project and you've just got folders and folders and folders and folders and hundreds of objects and different prefabs and textures and it's all over the shop. You run the game and you can straight away see that it actually causes a performance hit. If your Unity project is poorly managed, you can expect it to be relatively poorly optimized as well. Not optimized, but it will generally perform rather poorly too. Sort of depends as well. So this is where I'm sort of getting with this. So my biggest pieces of advice when it comes to project management. Now, everyone wants to know the ultimate fix all. They come to me with these messy projects and they're like, hey man, how do I fix it? The answer to that question, how do you fix a really messy project without spending hours of your time going through everything and working out what you need and what you don't need and writing things down and accidentally removing things that you did need, and how do you avoid all that? After you've let a project get messy, you don't. You just don't let a project get messy. Is the only way you can fix that. Because trying to clean up a project after you've let it go for weeks and you've imported all these assets and you've got folders with all this stuff in it and you don't know what you're using, you don't know what you're not using, you don't know what you've changed, you can't, it's really hard to come back from that. So the best thing, yeah, exactly, you can delete the project folder, but that's about it. Like, you don't you don't have a lot of options. Like, you can fix it, it's going to take you a lot of time, and you're going to spend most of that time just wishing you'd done it right from the word go. So that's my biggest piece of advice, and like, I'm guilty of this too, so a lot of it is probably, do as I say, but you're always better, maintenance is always better when it's preventative rather than reactive. So if you're preventing your project from getting messy in the first place, it's always going to be easier to deal with, it's going to be cleaner, it's going to run better, it's going to be easier for you to work on, you're going to know where things are, you're going to know what they're called, so yeah. That's my number one thing. If people worry so much about like what code they've got to learn, and if they've got to learn to draw, and if they've got to learn to model, and no, learn to keep your projects optimized. Don't sort of do what I've done here and just have like a few top level folders and then like everything else is just like lumped under it. Like, organize things, break things down into their individual functions. Like, okay, so I've got all my scripts just under one folder called script. Alright, well, straight away I've got a couple of camera scripts, so how about a folder called camera? Chuck stuff in that. What are you saying, Arm King? I name my variables random stuff, and boy, getting back to an old project is like learning a new language. That's yeah that's another point too. Unless you're working on something small, projects are going to take a while, and there's going to come a point where you'll spend a couple of weeks or even a couple of days, or you go off and you work on something else, or you'll have a break, you come back to a project, and even when things are named well and you've put comments in, like, trying to pick up on your code and figure out where you left off is really difficult. So the better you manage things, the better off you're going to be. Like, you're not only is your project going to work better, but you're going to be so much more sane. Your life's going to be easier, you're going to be happier, just do it. Keep, for like a couple of minutes extra here and there, you're saving yourself hours of time. Just do it. That simple. So some ways we can do that. Like I said, organize your folders, break things up into whatever works best for you. Like, if you have a game that's structured into levels, you've got level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a boss level, and then game over, and it's easier for you, have folders broken up into levels. You could have scripts and textures and objects that are specific to level 1 in a folder called level 1. Or if you have objects that are trees, you could have them in a folder called scenery trees, or whatever works for you. Just find a method, I suppose what probably matters, and this is the next thing, is naming conventions. If you do something consistently, it doesn't matter how easy it is for you to remember it. If you do something consistently, over time, you can rely on that. So if you know that you always call something a certain thing, if you see something called that, you know what it is straight away. Or if you're looking for something, you know what it's called, you know where to find it. If you don't know where to find it, you know how to search for it. Name things consistently. If it's like, I don't always, this is a bad example, this is an old habit I used to have. Every script I wrote used to end in the word script. I don't really do that anymore. It's kind of redundant. It's a script. But it used to be helpful for searching, because if I was looking for a script, I knew I could search for script, and I'd find all the scripts that were in my project, and I'd know where they are. What's probably more important is, like, if you're writing a script to control, say, the player's controls in the game, like, their keyboard controls or their mouse controls or whatever, have the word controller or controls or player or something like that in the script. Just be consistent. If you do it one way, always do it that same way, and you're always going to have an easier time trying to figure out when you have to backtrack your own steps. You're going to know easier how to predict what you were doing. You're going to know what you were doing. You're going to know exactly what you were thinking at the time. It just makes your life easier. It's another one of those things. QnA. Yes. What about QnA? Or is there a joke I'm missing? There's probably a joke I'm missing. I do that a lot. I'm just giving you a second because I was going to go off into something else, but if you're going to say something, I'll wait for you. And now I'm King's on the spot. You know what? I'll let you catch up. Probably the next point I've got, and like heaps of people hate scripting wise. Yeah. The key code. Oh, okay. As in QnA. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to remember which is which. That kind of thing can be fun. Alright, next point. Now, a lot of people don't like this. It can be a contentious point, but I believe in it, and that is that you should, at least until you're confident and you've been using Unity for a long while, and you know, I always believe that before you use a solution from someone else, you should know how to build that solution for yourself. There's a lot of reasons why I say that. Now, here's the thing, like, Unity's got this wonderful asset store, it's got all these people that contribute some wonderful stuff to it, and that's great, and I think it's fantastic, and I have no issues with using an asset appropriately. I'm not talking asset flips and all that, that is what it is. I'm talking about, like, you know, you don't want to have to write a pathfinding system, so you use someone's pathfinding asset. I don't see anything wrong with that. If it helps you to build a game efficiently, quickly, helps you achieve a dream, and you go about it responsibly, then I'm all for that. I think where it becomes a problem, though, is when people tend to use assets as a way to hide behind a lack of knowledge, or hide behind assets to try and disguise a lack of knowledge. Now, there's nothing wrong with not knowing things, but if you consistently avoid ever learning that thing, you know, you're always going to have that gap in your knowledge, and I think assets give people a way of doing that sometimes. I've seen entire games built from collections of assets, you know, and a person might have spent, excuse me, the hiccups tonight, a person might have spent a year building a game, and they could have made it out of 100 asset packs. And I'm not saying that doesn't take a lot of time and effort, it does. It takes a lot of work to throw together a lot of assets and to come up with a game, at least one that's even halfway decent, you know. And I have seen decent ones, I'm not making any comments there. But the point is, like, these people often get to the end of the game, and what they might have learned if they'd sat down and attempted to make that game themselves is really limited. So look, I believe, you know, we're in an interesting position. Unity, compared to when I was a lot younger at least, Unity's given the gaming industry, like, some stuff that it really needs. Like, we've got some really interesting stuff coming out now that wouldn't exist if it weren't for, like, Unity and Unreal and engines like that, you know, coming out and giving people the ability to do this stuff. So it's not a bad thing, and I think assets are a big part of that. And I sell assets, so, you know, I've got nothing bad to say about them in that regard. But I think it's just, yeah, you should always try to understand something before you go just using another solution. Because the other side of that is, and this is the important part when it comes to trying to keep your project well managed and keep your project clean. With every asset that you import comes some element of junk, some element of stuff that you don't want, stuff that you don't need. Usually your use case, it's very rare that you will have a case where you'll be like, I have this need for a thing, and you'll find an asset and the asset will perfectly fit that thing, and there'll be no overlap, you know, you won't have to customize it, you just drag and drop it in, and, you know, or whatever. But there's where every asset, or every single asset that exists within that asset package ends up being used efficiently and used by your game. That's very rare that happens. Usually you'll import assets, you'll use some percentage of them, and the rest just sits there in your project, you know, and I think that's it. So probably 2 points there. One, if you reduce how much you have to rely on assets, you reduce clutter in your project. You're not importing stuff that you don't need, unless you're very diligent with cleaning up your project. And you use a lot of assets. You're going to end up with stuff everywhere, and it can be very difficult to decide. You know, especially when you haven't built that thing yourself and you don't necessarily know what certain parts of it do, what they're needed for, if they're relevant. trying to then clean up that asset if you need to is going to be very difficult. So if you know how it works, you can better manage it, and you can manage your project better. So if you've built it yourself, that's the ultimate way to know how something works. But if you've imported these assets, you've brought in all this junk with them, you can not only run the risk that you may never learn how to build that thing yourself, but you also run the risk that you're cluttering your project up and you're filling it with stuff that you don't need. So as I like to look at it, if you have confusing projects, confuse computers. So if you have a badly managed project, you can oftentimes have a badly performing game. So my biggest advice to you, keep it clean from the word go. Organize things, keep things like for like. If it performs a certain function in a certain way, in a certain position in your game or a certain place in your game, then keep it with things that also do similar things, like perform similar functions or exist at similar points in your game. So if it's all sort of related to scenery, keep it in scenery. If it's all related to managing the AI, keep it in AI, things like that. And then it doesn't really matter, I don't think there's any harm in having things like materials in with scripts, in with prefabs, in with, whatever you want, images, sprites, I don't care. I think that's fine, as long as the naming convention is, standard. You tend to know what you're looking for and how to find it. It doesn't really matter sort of how things are sitting. As long as you understand your project, I guess that's all that matters. But at the same time, if you keep it clean, the computer will have a much easier time running it. So it's that simple. Alright guys, hopefully, I don't know, I'm not sure if that gave you much. I feel like I just lectured you on that last point. But it is a big thing, and I do, that's probably the biggest thing that I have people come to me with. They say my project doesn't work well, or it's, it needs optimization. You just open it up and it's like, well, this project just took 15 minutes to open in Unity, and then you look at it and it's like, well, if the editor can't run it, what chance has it got once it's built, kind of thing, So anyway, that's my big piece of advice on that one. Keep your project clean, keep it tidy, and it will make you happier as a developer, and it will make anyone that has to work with you happier. Alright, I think we're going to take a little bit of a break. Hopefully no more than 10 minutes, guys. I'm very sorry. I need these things. Just basically going to run to the bathroom, maybe get myself a bit of a drink or something. And I'll be right back. We're going to kick off with, what's next? What have we got? Going to kick off with talking about how to do some FX within Unity. So we're going to talk about post-processing, which is a really cool thing if you haven't played with that. And you see this, life's going to be great. And some particle emitters as well. They're very similar. So they're a cool little effect that you can apply to Unity. Particle emitters are just fantastic. We can go into them. And I've just written up a bit of a list as well of some other little tricks that I tried to think of things that I use often that might help you guys out. So I've got a couple of little tricks there about how to just sort of make objects do some cool little things, as well as and we might end it after that with a bit of just general advice where relevant, and we'll have a bit of a Q&A after that. So holy crap, guys, an hour 49. Good job, team. Alright, I'll be back in say 10 minutes or so. That'll mark 2 hours, and then we can kick off into the next stuff. Hopefully it won't be too much longer than that. Alright guys, I'll speak to you shortly.
Okay. Sorry guys. Ah, life is good. I got a fresh drink. Where's the... That's what I want. Oh, hang on. Stop talking to me, computer. Alright. Alright, cool. So, next up, what do we got? Post-processing. So, we're going to have a quick chat about doing some tricks in Unity, so some effects that you can apply to try and make the game look a bit nicer. I'm just going to add a bit more stuff to the scene, just because if we're going to be playing around with the look of it, we probably actually want there to be some stuff to see. Now, where's that camera? What I might do, just going to position the scene view so we've got a bit of this stuff in view. Get the camera. Where is it? There's a way you can snap it. Ah, that's it. Got it. Control-Shift-F will align whatever you have selected with your scene view. So if you've selected the camera and you hit Control-Shift-F, just do it again, it's going to position it to where your scene view is. So it's a cool little way to just like figure out where you want your camera to be. I'm sure there's a way to do it via these menus up here. Lock view to Control-Shift-F. Is there a Control-Shift? Selection, hang on. Nope. Nope. No. Align with view. It's probably a setting somewhere. Game object. There it is. Align with view. Control-Shift. Sorry, guys. But yeah, it's just a cool little way to do it. If you hit that, so you can see the camera, the game camera, has adjusted itself to match my scene view. So it's a cool way to just position the camera. Alright, cute. Alright, so post-processing. Still got all this junk down here, don't I? What is it? I think it's all 2D stuff. You know, I'm going to add some random stuff in here, just for fun. What's this? I don't even know what this is. I think this was like a little dungeon crawler or something, like a turn-based dungeon crawler. Like little goblins. I'm going to draw all this. Best artwork ever. There we go. Just getting some stuff on the screen there. You can see it in the game view down there. Alright, so post-processing. Let's add some of that in. So we'll use the post-processing stack that gets provided by Unity. And the easiest way to get that is actually off the asset store. So a couple of ways you can do it. You can probably just go on your web browser and go to the Unity asset store, or you can open the asset store tab. I think if you just do an add tab, is it in there? How do we add it? Hang on. Nope, so maybe it's a window, asset store, there we go. Some hotkeys there as well. If we do that, so it adds the tab in, the asset store is going to load. And we're just going to quickly search for post-process, and there it is, post-processing stack, Unity, tech, cool. Might need to download that and then just import it. It's going to let it do its thing. So after I've just finished lecturing you about assets and all that, for the record, you can code this yourself. There's nothing to stop you coding these effects onto your camera. Using some shaders, whatever you want to do, I don't know, but you can do this. All it is anything you ever really import in this regard is just going to be a series of scripts. So there's no reason you can't code this yourself, but I think the post-processing stack is probably going to be my exception to the rule. Like they've provided it specifically so you can access these functions a lot more easily. So I don't know. You know, it'd be a cool kind of thing to do if you had a really specific effect in mind that you wanted to apply. I think it'd be really cool to try and code your own. But for now, though, I think this is just a really good starting point for people to apply some effects to their games. So if I was to work on a full commercial release, like I might use some of the stuff out of this, but probably only very lightly. I would work on my own effects because you'd want them to suit your game. Like you'd want them to best suit the style, your art style, etc., etc. And like I said, it's rare that you're going to find an asset that perfectly fits your use case. So anyway, we're going to import all these. It's going to create the folder, create all the assets. When it gets there, oh yeah, it's just whinging about versions. It's going to take a moment. We can just kick back, enjoy. How you guys all doing, eh? Coping? It's not too much for you? 2 hours, 5 minutes. I don't know, man. These guys that stream all day, every day, I don't think I could do it. They've been talking for 2 hours and I'm losing my voice. Imagine doing it for like 8 hours, 10 hours straight. Wow. Alright, cool. I'm just going to go back to the scene view so we can see all that stuff we added in. We've got a folder here now, the post-processing. So that's the asset we just imported. It's got a few things under it, none of which we really need to worry too much about. So you could probably put that away somewhere if you wanted to organize it, you know, keep your project clean. But ultimately, the way we use it is pretty straightforward. You're not going to need to worry too much about what's in there. If you want to go in and dig into it and, you know, play with the scripts and stuff, you definitely can. It definitely wouldn't hurt. You might learn a few things along the way, not a bad thing. But to use it at its simplest, we just go to our camera. We're going to add a component to it. And we should be able to find, I think we can do it this way, the post-processing behavior script. So we can add it via this. We could even drag and drop it if we found it in the post-processing asset folder. You can even add it from up here as well. Component. What's it under? It's under effects, I think. Effects, post-processing behavior. Either way, we want to add that. We want to add that to our camera. Post-processing behavior. So cool, pretty straightforward. It's just a script. It has one variable, and it's asking for a profile. The profile is a post-processing profile object, so we need to create that. Very easy to do. Well, I'll just create it in the base level here. You'd probably put this somewhere a bit better, but I'm just going to create a post-processing profile. I'm just going to give it a name. Default profile should be fine. Cool, and with that selected, we can see in our inspector a whole bunch of what seem to be effects. If you're a gamer, you're probably going to recognize a fair few of these, like bloom, your depth of field, your ambient occlusion, anti-aliasing, whatever, fog. All of these are different effects that you can now apply to this post-processing profile. Good God. But first, before it's going to do anything, we're going to go to our camera. We're actually going to add that to this profile variable here. It's easy to do. We can just click on it. There's one there that I believe comes with the asset. Yeah, I'm not sure what that one's about. But we're just going to add in the one we created. Didn't. What? I swear I clicked on that. I'm going to watch that again. I swear I clicked on it. I'm going to add the default profile. And we're going to go back to it. We're just going to click on it again in the project. So we've added it to the camera. So the camera is now applying that profile to what it sees. There's nothing happening at the moment. It's not doing anything, which is why we can't see any difference. I'm just going to make this a bit bigger as well. It's going to look better in the game view. So if we go to the profile now, we can start applying some stuff. There is a fog, but yeah, what is this? Filtering actual fog settings should be set. Yeah, so you do that through lighting. Those lighting settings I showed you earlier. You probably wouldn't apply fog here. I've never used it. Anti-aliasing. If you're familiar with that, you sort of know roughly what that does. It will just sort of smooth off the edges of objects at a cost of performance.
I'm not really seeing much of a difference. I think that's probably because I'm using like these sprites, and they're probably already getting filtered. It's probably not really enough to see there. It doesn't matter, but that's what it will do. It will generally smooth off any jagged edges on objects and things like that. Screen space reflection I'm not familiar with personally. What we've got? Third room path. I feel like that would probably work in tandem with the skybox. I'm not sure though, I'd need to look that up. If anyone wants to Google the screen space reflection for post-processing, I'd be curious to know what it achieves. Depth of field, I believe, is just similar to, like you'd imagine on a camera. It's sort of, I guess, altering it, sort of alters the perspective on certain objects, like makes them appear perhaps a little bit smaller than they actually are. It's sort of just, I don't know, it's hard to explain that one. So yeah, I don't know if it's actually going to make a huge bunch of difference in this one either. There's a few that will. Yeah. Oh, there we go, yeah. Sort of similar to how you'd imagine it would work with a camera. Anyway, kind of just cool. I guess altering that just alters the perspective of your game. So like it'd be in extreme cases, like you could use it if you were trying to give something the perspective, like give the player the perspective that an object is miniature or very, yeah, sort of at a different scale to its environment, I guess, than it would appear. Yeah, that's probably another one. If someone wants to have a look at that one, they're welcome to do so. Motion blur, yeah, so if the camera moves rapidly, if it applies any sort of blurring effect to that. Eye adaptation, I've not really seen that working, but I believe it's meant to mimic the eye. It mimics, so you know when you look at a light and you get that little blurry dot in front of your eye, and it takes a little bit for that to sort of disappear. It mimics that kind of behavior. Like that's an extreme example, but you know, if you walk from a bright room to a dark room, there should be a moment of adjustment. There should be a transition. If it was being realistic, you wouldn't expect to be able to see perfectly straight away. The eye adaptation, I believe, applies that effect. And sorry, I'm not covering these in great detail. Like most of them, cool. Most of them, you'll see that they're quite complex. They're quite detailed. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Most of them are fairly obvious if you play with them. You'll see what they do. You'll see how they work. You can sort of just go from there. And if there's an effect you're trying to achieve, you can sort of Google that effect, work backwards, like work from the effect that you're trying to achieve, and sort of find a way to achieve it. And usually you can achieve it using the post-processing stuff. But yeah. Bloom is that lovely glow. I don't really like bloom much. I think it gets a bit overused in games like nowadays, especially like first person. But you can see straight away there, like it's applied that bloom effect to the white glowing surface, so it doesn't appear to be applying it to the sprites. Maybe they don't do that. You probably could apply, maybe? No. Material sprites default, so you might be able to find like a glowing, if I you could probably apply a material to the sprites to make them glow in bloom. I know I've done that with UI elements before, like to make a text sort of glow. It's definitely possible, but yeah, that's sort of like why that is generally where I'll use bloom. I won't sort of, I don't know, once again, I don't really make first person games that often. I don't sort of make games that are like visually pretty in that regard, but I will use the post-processing stuff a lot for like UI effects. I love the bloom to try and like highlight little icons like UI buttons and things like that, especially when you use like a neon sort of green or a blue or a yellow, and then you can apply a material behind it that has a emission yeah, you apply a material with an emission applied to it, and that'll cause that lovely sort of bloom effect. I could probably show you that actually. What am I creating? I'm creating material. Material. See, I still do it. I still call objects like what they are in their names, which I shouldn't really do. But yeah, we've got a standard material here. If I apply an emission to it, give it a color, just give it a bright red for now, because you know why not. What's my floor cube called again? There we go. Here's my renderer default material. I think if I apply that there, I'm just going to get that, yeah, with that red glow there from the emission. But you can see it's a lot brighter because it is actually, yeah, it has that emission applied to it. I don't know if I'm going to do it with, I'm going to try it with a sprite, see what I can do. See if we've got the, what's the blue material? Is that, what, huh? What, huh? Wait, okay. No, it doesn't work. Hang on. You can't have none. You need default sprite, that's why. There it is, right in front of me. Yeah, anyway, bloom. You get the idea. Bloom makes things glow. Like I said, I think it has its uses. I think it can be quite useful. And it can be quite flexible with Unity as well, like using this post-processing stack. Like I said, you can apply it to like UI elements and all that sort of stuff. Like I said, generally need to apply a material to the UI element that has an emission on it. Otherwise, they won't. Like text and images and stuff won't glow unless you do that. But you can make them actually glow, which I like. I think that's a really cool little thing. Just be careful, don't go crazy on it. Color grading, it's sort of like applying a filter, I guess, for want of a better description. So you can sort of apply these, there's some the tone mapping prefab sort of things up there, I guess. But using those, you can just sort of adjust certain elements of the camera's like hues and how it perceives things. I don't really use it that much unless you're sort of going for a particular look. Like it's easier to achieve like those sepia tones and things using this. If that's what you're looking for, I think it's quite cool. Don't know what user alert is. Sorry, not sure. We need to look that up. Chromatic aberration, I like. That is like that. Excuse me. It's that, sort of like that effect that you get like old monitors, old screens. Is it doing it? Kind of doing it. If you look at the edging here, actually, I'll see if I can we can zoom that in a bit. Maybe that will do it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's a lot more obvious. It's probably hard to show it on that. Maybe if we had a black background. Yeah, you can kind of see it. So I'm not 100% sure how it works, like what it's actually doing to achieve this, but I believe it's sort of like a scattering of the pixels, maybe. But you can sort of see there, yeah, you're getting like that, like you'd expect to see on like an old, really old TV or a really old monitor. You get sort of that color distortion and blurring at the edges. The more extreme it is, sort of the further in that comes. I think it's really cool. Like it's a cool little effect that you can apply, especially on like scenes where you might be on like a main menu or looking at a terminal, or you know, if you're like, I'm trying to think of some games that have used it. Like is that Pony Island one? I think used it quite heavily. It is a cool little effect. It's also one of those ones that you tend to see it often overused when it's used. So it can be easy to go overboard on it because it's one of those really noticeable effects. So it's easy to sort of just be like, yeah, cool, I'm going to use that, you know, and you crank it up and then you're like, yeah, that looks really cool, and to everyone else it kind of just it just hurts the eyeballs, you know. But it's a cool little effect, and I'll come back to that one in just a sec. You've got grain as well, which is sort of like well, you can see it straight away. It's applied that there. If I play this, look at this game. What a great game this would be. Oh, the cubes are falling. Fantastic. You can see it there, like that little speckling, sort of fuzzy, staticky, whatever you'd want to call it. But that's grain. That's what's going on there. And by modifying those values, you can make it more intense, or you can sort of adjust how big those grains are. Just different little values. Playing with those will you'll find what you like. This next one I love, the vignette. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Vignette? We'll go with that. So that's like I'll see if I can make it really intense so you can sort of see it. Like, there you go. Now, you might be looking at that like, why the hell would I want that? Oh, cool, there you go. It's a little roundness. So, how about, let's yeah, I got that black background again, so that's going to make things interesting. Let's go back to Skybox. So, looking at that, like that once again, you're sort of getting a bit of that old schooly kind of monitor effect going on there. If we combine it, maybe with the chromatic aberration, we can get like a really, I'm really going to accentuate that. Like, that's stupid and it's over the top. Let's see, maybe adjust that with smoothness. The intensity is quite, just give it a bit, but not heaps. A bit more like that. So we're already getting this cool sort of like, effect, like if you were maybe looking at an old school monitor. We could probably combine that with a bit of the depth of field, maybe? I need to really look into how to use that, because I'm not very familiar. Don't know how well it, I don't think it's working so well, because those are 2D objects. So, well, it'd probably help if I knew how to use it, that would be it. But either way, like, yeah, you can sort of see you can easily sort of adjust things and can I do anything with the ambient included? Probably not. Oops, sorry. Hope I'm not being too quiet. Maybe turn the bloom on. Oh, there we go. Yum, what a great game. I'd love to play this. I'd play that. $20 on Steam, I'd pay for that. Straight away. No problems. You'd get nothing but great reviews, you know it. Cool. What else? And dithering. Some of those effects I've never really, I have not ever really noticed a huge difference in using it, I suppose. But it exists, and it's a thing, and you can play with it. But yeah, so that is a really quick and easy way. The post-processing stack is a cool little way to just add some basic effects into your game. I mean, looking at that, that's hideous, and I admit that, but it's kind of meant to be. It's just sort of an extreme version of what you can achieve. But it's an easy way, and like I said, you've got some very, very common effects in there, and they can be altered, and they can be altered on the fly via code. So it's just an easy way to sort of configure this stuff and just give your game a little bit of extra kick. I use a post-processing stack pretty much anytime I do a game jam, and it's amazing what kind of a difference just dragging that in and spending 10-15 minutes on it can make a huge difference in the presentation of your game. I think ratings and game jams have sort of spoken for themselves a little bit in that regard. But yeah, they are the post-processing stack is a very quick and easy way to achieve a nice, simple look in your game without having to spend a lot of time writing your own code. Though I recommend it if you are making a serious attempt at a game. It's like all things, assets are good, but they should only carry you so far. Alright. How do we all feel about that? How are we all doing, guys? You've all been a bit quiet. I hope everyone's still alive, awake, all that stuff.
doing okay. I've got, what have we got up next? So that was the post-processing in the stack. No one has any questions. I might just quickly have a look at some particle emitters. I think they're really cool too. Wonder if I can just, yeah, I'm just going to keep this stuff here because I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to add, oh, you're right, man. No problems. I just want to make sure, yeah, everything's all good. I added a noise suppression on my microphone because I had a quick listen when I had a break, and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of background noise. That's my computer, sorry. It's like a jet engine. But yeah, I'm hoping it should be like I should be coming through clearly, and you shouldn't be getting that like background fuzz anymore. So yeah, hopefully that's working. All right, particle emitters. I'm gonna apply. This is gonna be epic. Watch this. I'm gonna apply one to this. This little. It's a pile of gold and gems. In case you can't tell, that's what it is. I'm gonna apply a particle emitter to that. And it's a component, so we're gonna. Yep. I think it was. Ooh. Oh, there we go. Particle system. I'm going crazy. So we add a particle emitter via a particle system component. So straight away we can see it's doing something. So particle emitters. All right, they pretty much are what they sound like. They emit particles. They just spew out little pixels like you're seeing, or not pixels, but predefined 2D. Like billboarded images, I guess, like little sprites. You can have 3D ones as well. They're a cool little way of achieving some nice looking effects really easily. Like I've used them in the past to sort of achieve like campfire effects, or like jet engines, like engines from spaceships, and all sorts of stuff. And there's a lot of things you can edit as well, so it makes it really cool. So this isn't great, like we can see. I'm just going to stop it because that's kind of annoying. We can see here we've got the particle system. It's a component. We've got a lot of stuff we can edit. I'm not going to cover everything because there is a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of different things you can do. Really, I think I just found a lot of it out by just playing around with things, seeing what they did, trying to achieve a certain effect, just playing with things until I got close. Googling it as well, if you want to know what an effect does, look it up. Most of it's pretty well documented. You can figure out how most things work. I suppose I'll just cover some of the basic stuff first of all. So your duration, so a particle emitter works in a loop. So if I play that, you can see it's looping. So its playback speed is playing back at a normal speed, 100%. Playback time, so what's that playing to? Why is that playing to 10? Start lifetime 5. Oh, that's just how long it's been playing for. But it's essentially just looping and randomizing every single time that loop runs. So I can probably adjust. If I adjust the duration, it's not going to make any difference. Actually, if I turn off looping so it doesn't loop, I'm just going to restart it. It'll play for 5 seconds. And it stops. So the duration is how long will one cycle of the loop last in this particle emitter. So you may not necessarily want a particle emitter to loop, like if it was, let's say a campfire, it's going to be sort of emitting smoke and emitting particles upwards for as long as the campfire exists, you'd imagine. But you could use this to, say, smoke from an explosion. You'd probably only want it to play once. You'd want the smoke to, woof, and off it would go, and it's gone. Sorry, Tom, didn't notice that. But yeah, you wouldn't necessarily always want it to loop. You might want it to just play once, play for a set amount of time, and then finish. So that's why a duration can come in handy. A flat 2D game where you place a network of stuff, power stations, and pylons. So when you put a power station down a bunch of pylons, the electricity travels between auto-created links between them. Alright, cool. I'm just going to note that down, man, because I do have an answer for you on that, actually. I think. It depends on sort of how you're asking. But that'll take me a little bit. So I might get to that once we're done with this. I'm nearly done with all the FX stuff. But yeah, that is something I'm actually really interested in. and I've played with a bit in the past. Oh, sorry if my microphone's clicking. The arm is also a bit funny sometimes. Cool, man. But yeah, I look forward to covering that. That one's going to be fun. Cool. So a couple of other options. The pre-warm, I won't cover that too much other than to say, yeah, you can have... so when a particle emitter starts, it sort of emits... Like, imagine sort of pouring a bunch of ping pong balls out of a basket. You know, you don't expect them to all just suddenly appear at once. You would expect, you know, 1, 2 would come out, 3, 4, and then it would sort of come out in a bit of a flood. A particle emitter kind of works like that, depending on how you've got it configured. They generally will start off and, you know, slow and get faster and then slow down, sort of, kind of. That's sort of one way to look at it. But a pre-warming essentially says, nah, when you start, I want you to behave as if you have always been emitting. So you will have particles just sort of appear in the air and start moving outwards or doing whatever they do. I reckon I've used it a couple of times, so I reckon it does actually come in handy. I can't think of the context off the top of my head though. But yeah, but it is something you can do. You can apply a delay to a particle emitter, which I think's, you know, pretty handy. So you may you may not necessarily want it to start emitting straight away. You may want it to exist without emitting for some reason. Your start lifetime is essentially the lifetime of your particles. So when a particle is created from the emitter, so not only is there a lifetime, a duration of the loop, but each particle also has a lifetime of its own. So a particle can be emitted, the loop can end, and the particle can still exist. So if I had, say, if it was only had a duration of, say, a second, it was only going to emit particles for 1 second, but those particles had a lifetime of 5 seconds, they'll get emitted only for 1 second, but they'll still exist for 5. They'll still be in the world. So that lifetime is how long does each particle live for before it is destroyed. Yeah, man, yes. Yeah, bingo. Spot on. I think the delay on this stream is a bit longer than I think it is. But yes, no, that'd be a very good... the rain context that Tom just pointed out is a good one. So you would have... Yeah, you wouldn't have... You know, you would imagine that you load, say, a scene... It's raining in the scene. You wouldn't want, you know, the scene loads, there's no rain, and all of a sudden it starts raining from the top. That wouldn't work. You would expect the scene to load and there'd be rain already all over the place. So yeah, pre-warming, I believe pre-warming achieves that. Pre-warm just basically says, yeah, act as if you... Yeah, there you go, 10-15 seconds delay. So but yeah, it should act as if it's been running the whole time. So yeah, start lifetime is how long does each particle exist for before it's destroyed. So it's fairly self-explanatory. Playing with that and the duration and the delay will usually sort of give you the results you want in one way or another, as will the start speed. So the start speed and the start lifetime are going to drastically affect how far the particles move. So at the moment, when you're in edit mode as well, the particle emitter only works if you're selecting it. So it's actually moving outwards like that. So it's moving positive on the z-axis, which is technically forward, which I believe is why it's going that way. We'll fix that up in a sec. I'm going to edit it and show you guys how it could be made to look cool. But yeah, so at the moment that's just spewing these lovely little pink pixels forward. I might just sort of show you, if we now increase, I'm going to decrease their lifetime, make them only last for a second. So straight away we can see they're getting out 1 second old, then they die. But their start speed is 5. So if I reduce that start speed, let's say make it 2, they're going to travel a much shorter distance before their lifetime ends. So as a result, they're going to be more bunched up, and they're going to sort of, yeah, be this little sort of particle effect as opposed to sort of travelling out a lot further. So if I now make their speed significantly higher, they're going to move out even further. So I mention that because that can be a bit of a tripping point as well. Like sometimes, you know, when you're trying to get the effect
looking good and you're trying to get a certain effect that you want, you really need to play with those two values, the speed and the lifetime, to try and work out how to make it behave the way you want it to. Excuse me. Alright. So what else? 3D start size. Yeah. Sort of more useful if you're working with like sort of 3D particles, I guess. Start size. Now we should... Oh, you can. That's right. That's how you do it. Start size is pretty cool. So if I change that, it's just going to change how big the pixels are. So there we go. It's pretty big. One cool thing you can do with this is you can actually, if you click this little arrow, you can have a curve, or you can have like randoms or randoms between two curves. A random between two constants is one I quite like. So I could have 0.1 and let's say 2. So already you can see like a massive variety. Excuse me, sorry guys. You can see like a variety of the particles. It's randomizing that size, and most of these you can do. So that, yeah, you star rotation, you know, random. I think most of it you can do that with. Just sort of helps you get like a bit more of a natural look, like a cool look to your particles. Same with your start rotation. You can change their rotation, the way they look. Generally, I believe by default they'll be facing the camera when they come out of the particle emitter. Play on awake. So I believe, yeah, you would generally by default that'll be going. So the moment the particle emitter exists, it's going to start playing. If you turn that off, you can still tell the particle emitter via code to play. So you might use that. Like, I don't know. Generally, I will use a particle emitter. If it's not set on a static object and always playing, I'll create it. It will play for as long as it's needed, and then I'll destroy it. I don't think I've ever really had to use that, but once again, I'm sure it has its purpose. There's a lot of other stuff in there as well that I'm not going to go too much into. I'm going to say, I think, if that's the one I think it is, simulation space is pretty cool. It's your world setting. It's a bit hard to tell. Yeah, it is. So you'll notice if I love this setting. I think this is really cool. I've used it a lot. The simulation space on your particle emitters. If it's set to local, the particles are always going to be relevant to their emitter. So they're always going to sort of stay, you know, you can see it happening there. Even though a particle is being emitted outwards, it's sort of still staying with the object as I move it. If I change that simulation space to world, and custom's pretty cool as well. I've never played with that, but it looks like you can set it to an object. If I set it to world and then move the object, you'll see the particles actually stay where they are. They're now relative to the world rather than the emitter. So that's kind of cool. Like, I tend to use that more than the alternative, I reckon. Like, I don't use local a lot. I like world because, like, imagine, like, you know, let's say you got a meteor shooting through the sky and it's leaving a trail behind it. You know, you'd use world, so it's like sparking as it goes, or flames are coming out, or whatever, smoke. So that's where world comes in handy. I really like that setting. I think it's cool. You can apply gravity to your particles. You know, you have a lot of control, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. You can really make these things do whatever you want. And you can achieve some really cool little effects using them. Alright, cool. So that's some of the basic stuff. I'm just going to go down a bit, so that's still going a bit crazy. Let's try and make this look a bit cooler, shall we? So emission rate here, I don't really know what I'm trying to achieve. It's a pile of gold and gems. So, you know what, I'm going to make it shoot sparkly yellow sparkles upwards, because I believe gold does that in real life. That's what gold does. So, emission. Oh, please bear with me for 1 second. Apologies, cat dramas. Best live stream ever. So the emission rate over time. That's basically saying, all right, so
it takes your duration. It goes, all right, I am going to be emitting for 5 seconds. I'm not quite sure what the formula is. Oh, there you go. Number of particles emitted per second. Ha! Tooltips. Fantastic. 7 days. I don't get it, but that's okay. Rate over distance. That's another cool thing as well. I'm going to say rate over time. I'm going to set to 0. Rate over distance, I'm going to set to 10. And then I'm going to move the object. And it's not going to do anything. Because why? Why not? Why not? Oh, maybe it needs to be higher. Maybe. Whoa! Latest. Okay, it works. It's a bit more intense than I thought. Oh, cool. This camera would be a bit creepy. The room kind of creepy when I wasn't here. I like it. Creepy's my thing. Alright, what was it? So, rate over distance. Rate over time is as it explains. So, yeah, how many are emitted per second. And how many emitted, so rate over distance is how many emitted per, based on how far it travels. So that's really cool. I've used that before. Like I said, I made a trail behind like a spaceship or something, I think it was. And it was like a little smoke trail and a little flame trail. And yeah, you use rate over distance because it would, if the object's sitting still, it wouldn't be emitting. But the moment the object would move, these particles would come out. So I can probably show you that. If I just bring this here, go to the camera, zoom it out a bit. So if we watch that little gold pile when I actually run the game, you're going to see it. So yeah, it's so because it's dropping, it's emitting those particles. And it's emitting them at a rate of 10 per 1 unit, I think is how it works. Something like that. Loot tile, right, there you are. Alright, cool. Yeah, emission just basically controls how many particles is it emitting based on the values you give it. Shape is actually the shape of the emitter, not the shape of the particles. So the shape, as we can see here, it's a cone shape, and it's pointing that way, angle 20, how do I adjust that? There, your rotation, there it is, cool. So if what am I rotating on? I'll rotate on X, I'll rotate at 90 degrees, it's going to go downwards, so I'll rotate at minus 90 degrees to go upwards. So we can see there I've adjusted the shape of the cone, or like the shape of the emitter by rotating it. It's now pointing upwards, so the particles are going to go up. You can change it, there's a few different types. Really, the one you want is going to depend on what the effect you're trying to achieve. I suppose it just kind of depends what you want to do. Cone's a good one. What's the other one I use? I think I use box. Yeah. Just because it's easy to sort of control the parameters. So that little blue box we see there is actually the emitter itself, or sort of its bounds, I guess. Emit from volume. So when you'll see this often on a few of the emitter types. Is it on cone? Yeah, emit from. There you go. If you see that, that's just sort of saying, all right, if I take these boundaries and I take the size of this particle emitter, where in that should I emit the particles from? So the volume just basically means, all right, anywhere from within the boundaries, create a particle and tell it to do its thing. You can tell it to emit from the shell, which is sort of like saying, I think, go from anywhere on the perimeter of the object. So if it's a sphere, for example, it would emit it from anywhere on the actual shell, the sphere itself. Same with the cube, it's emitting from sort of
I want to say the edges of the cube, but not, and you'll see why. So it's from like the walls of the cube. That's where it will emit from. It's a bit hard to sort of see here. Maybe I can make it. I can probably make it bigger. That might help. Probably need to be even bigger than that. It's kind of hard to see, but it should be only emitting from the perimeter of the object, as opposed to if I change it to volume. So it's not a huge difference. It's probably a bad example. If I change it to edge, it's going to be a little bit different again. It's only going to emit. It's only emitting literally from one of the edges. So whether that's one of this one, not the wall, not the surface there. It's emitting from the edge, which is kind of probably a bit more relevant in some of these, like, yeah, so here's probably more of an interesting point. If I change the emit from for the cone shape, so base, it's going to emit from the base of the cone. Volume, it emits from anywhere within it. So you can sort of see them appearing at the top there, and yeah. So that's shape. So anyway, I've managed to get it to point upwards. It's being a bit weird. I might just refine that a little bit. Let's go back to box and make that a bit smaller. Make these a bit smaller too. They don't need to be anywhere near that big. I'm not really sure what effect I'm aiming for here for the record. I think I'm just kind of doing something. Change the emission up. I'm going to change that to like 500, so they all come out at once. I'm going to make it not loop. So it's going to just be like, blah, done. Oh, make it a bit small. There we go, cool. This is going to be cool. You watch. Alright, cool. So, let's drop that a little bit. Actually, that was a bit ridiculous. Not really any better, but whatever. Alright, let's do this. And we'll get the camera. So, if I hit play, it's probably going to spew out a bunch of particles and disappear because I've still got a rigid body on it. This is fun. This is the best game ever, guys. Just going to take that rigid body off. Alright, cool. So, what it's doing is for half a second, it's just spewing out like a heap of particles, and then it's stopping. And it's doing upwards. Right. So where else? What else can we do? Alright, how about color over lifetime? Let's tick that and see what we can do with it. Random between two gradients, so we could randomize it if we want to. Color over lifetime. Alright, let's say we want it to start off gold and turn to white. So I'm going to change that to like a yellowy, goldy color kind of thing. I can also make it transparent too. No, I'm not going to change it to white. I'm going to change it to something else. I'm going to change it to like a, maybe I'll make it an orangier kind of gold instead, just so you can sort of see what's going on. And I'm going to drop the transparency a little bit so they become slightly transparent. Okay. Just because. So now if I play it, they should start off yellow, go kind of orange and disappear. Except not. I'm not entirely sure what just happened there. Unless it's a render. Hang on. And we've got to give it a material. There we go. Got to give it a particle material. That's better. Yeah, so sorry. If we come down to renderer, you just want to give it the default particle material. You can actually, you can create little things like, I don't know if I've got any that are going to be good as an example. But you can, create your own little particles. So if you want like a snowflake or a raindrop or a spark or a piece of confetti or, I don't know, go crazy. Whatever. You can have it. You just draw it up, chuck it in there, away you go. You do need to there's a few things you need to do. It's probably worth Googling if you want to go down that track, but yeah, you can do it. It's yours. Billboard, see, you can have a mesh, so you could have cubes. It kind of don't work so well because it's got the wrong... Yeah, where's that bloom? Oh, this is going to look good. Ugh. You can have 3D particles, that's the point. Right. I was going to... Oh, because it's still got the bloom material. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in there. Like, yeah, have a play around. And you'd be surprised what you can sort of achieve in there as well. Like I said, they can be any size, any shape, any color. They can have trails. You can have particles that emit particles, like sub-emitters, I think they're called. There's lots of different stuff you can do. They can collide. They can have physics. They can be 3D. Lots of stuff. But yeah, you can achieve some really, really freaking cool effects using the particle emitters. Alright. How are we going, guys? Any questions? We're good? We're happy? I don't assume so. So it's like 15 seconds, so I'm gonna have a drink, let it catch up. As I realise, I'm probably like, hey guys, you got any questions? So let's talk about this other thing. And then by the time you guys hear me ask that question about the questions, it's too late. So, haven't heard anything. All sounds good. Alright, cool. Okay, yeah, it's particle emitters. Really cool. Play with them. Even if you don't really have any idea in mind, just have a play with one, because you'd be surprised what you can achieve with them. I'm gonna delete that. Alright, cool. What do we got now? I'm gonna bring him back over there. So, a few other little random things. So this is just sort of notes, some other little tricks we can do, some other little things I was able to think of. I'll end that with some general advice as well. And then we'll get to some questions. Oh yeah, fair enough, man. It's a hard one. It's complicated. Alright, so I will run through it real quick just because I'm really excited about that one. So there's a really cool little method you can use. So I've actually played with it before. I've made like a little game where you construct a base, and it's 2D, and the base is like it goes up and outwards, and it's a grid, and you're just positioning things like on top of each other and outwards. And yeah, you had, as part of it, I had like little power generators, and they had to provide power to everything. So what I actually found probably the best method for it, and this might get a little bit complicated, but I'll do my best. It's kind of like I think it's called time to live in networking, or in like IP addresses and that kind of thing. And the idea is, so what you would probably do is have, say, a list or like a dictionary or a hash table containing the position of all either your pylons or whatever, and they would need to be, you would need to ensure they're in like defined positions, so they're generally, they're always going to be a certain distance apart, or they're always going to be, you can always find one from another kind of thing. Like if you select one of the buildings, or like if you've got a building in one position and you go sort of one unit to its left, if you check that, that there's a possibility there's going to be a building there. So like you might round the positions off or something like that. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. But so what I've done in the past, like in a case of a grid, I'll have every grid position stored in a list, and I might just do a check. If I go to an object or like a building, I'll say, all right, check above you, next to you, to the right of you, below you. Check that list for that position. If that position's there, check it, and see if there's a building on it. And if there is another building on it, see if, then we do some stuff involving power. So the stuff involving power this is where it gets really, really cool. So essentially you need a method for checking buildings and being able to say to a building, okay, look at what's around you, work out if any of those buildings are powered, if there's another pylon, if that pylon has power, you need a method to be able to check an object and get some data back off the script. So whether you use raycasting, whether you reference it in a list or a hash table, whatever, you just need some way to do that. Once you do that, once you've got your ability to reference an object and to check it and to check its neighbors and find out if it's surrounded by any sort of powered buildings, what I do is I start with, so I will usually, I'm trying to think of this, your power generators, so you have a hidden value. You have a value and it might be called like, it might be like an integer that you call power level or something like that. For your generator, for your main power producing building, you would have a boolean on it to say, does this building produce power? If it does, then it sets its power level to something ridiculously high, like 99999 or something like that, like an unrealistic number, depending. What then happens is that you run a bit of a loop across every building in your game, and you say to every single, or every building that can be powered, you run a loop across them, and you say to each and every single one, all right, I want you to check your neighbors and see if they're powered or not. First of all go, am I powered? If I'm not, and I need to be or whatever, check my neighbors around me, find out if they're powered or not. If they are, find each one of the neighbors, you need to find that value, the power level. And the idea would be that what you would do is you would always set, so if you're checking a building, you would set its power level to be one less than the highest power level of its neighbors. So and that's essentially all it is if you have a building and next to it is another building and next to it is a power generator. Let's say that power generator has a value of 999. The very next one is going to do a check around it. It's going to check this building and it's going to say, you're not powered, I don't care about you. It's going to check the generator and it's going to say, you're powered, and your power level is 999. Therefore, my power level needs to be 998. And as a result, it too becomes powered. The next building does the check. Its only neighbor is the now powered building, so it goes, all right, you're powered. Your power level is 998. I'm going to become 997. And basically you run a loop, and you there's a few little quirks to this system, but it's essentially a time to live system. So its point of origin has the highest possible value. Every time it takes a step, it moves one step, or it moves through a building. Every building further from the source, it loses like 1 off its value, or 5 or 10 or whatever. You can work out the values for yourself. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I'll Google it, man. I'll have a look. ECS. Got my pen. But yeah, so the idea is that you do. Every time a new building gets powered, it now has a power level value of 1 less than the building before it. So, I mean, it could be... Yeah, nice. But yeah, so it could be a problem if, say, your power generators only start with a value of 10 and you get 10 buildings down and the next building is going to get a power level value of like 0. It probably wouldn't even matter. It'd just go into -1 and still consider itself powered. Depends how you write the code. But yeah, that would work. So, and I really like that because it's a method that you can apply to heaps of different stuff, not just that. So you can even use it in cases of like just any sort of situation where you need to see. It's almost like a basic pathfinding kind of system, I guess. So if you need to see if point A is linked to point B in any way, you can use that method to do it. You just give point A a high value, and every step in the process it just loses 1 off that until it eventually reaches the end point, and then you've got every step it's taken along the way. So it's a really cool little method, and it should work to achieve that kind of behavior if that's what you're looking for. But yeah, that's why I want to cover that, because like I love that, and I've been using that method for like a couple of years now. I really like it. I think it works well. Cool. But yeah, hopefully that covers it, man. But yeah, I don't know if are you on my Discord or not, but if you are, you're just welcome to swing us a message at some point. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Cool. All right, done. So I'm just kind of waiting to see if you reply. The delay kind of screws with me a little bit. All right, some other tricks. So I'm gonna start with a really. Oh, cool, man. Yeah, that'd be awesome. You don't have to. I was gonna say. I think my email's listed. Yeah, you can get like my email address from the about section of YouTube, so that might work for you too. Hey, there you go. Give you a roll. You special now too, dude. Welcome. But yeah, if you want to chat about it sometime, swing us a message. Maybe not tonight because I'm going to be pretty buggered by the time we're done, but maybe I'll have a chance to chat to you about it at some point. I think it's I love it. I think it's a really exciting little formula, little method. But yeah, hopefully that covers it for you, dude. If not, we'll talk soon. Cool. So I'm gonna start with a couple of little tricks. We're nearly done, guys. We're 3 hours down. You guys are troopers. Well done. We've got, and in case I don't catch you, Tom, see you, man. Thanks for coming past. But yeah, some of the tricks we've got. I'm gonna start with something really simple, and people sort of underestimate this a lot, and that is simply that your ability to be able to enable and disable objects within your game world. So I've got my little loot pile here. Most people are probably familiar. You can just tick this box. You're welcome, buddy. And it's just going to disappear from the game world. Now, that essentially is just making it inactive. It's removing it. I'm not quite sure how it works. I don't know if it sort of behind the scenes if it disables everything or what, but it just tells it to stop rendering it. But essentially anything that's now attached to that object becomes inactive and stops working. But what's cool about it is you can actually, in code, retain a reference to that object. So if you've referenced it and you've said, yep, okay, I've got a variable, a game object variable, and it's referencing this loot pile, this loot tile, whatever, and I disable it in the code, I've still got the reference, and that reference is still valid, so I can then re-enable it later on. And you can do this as many times as you like, and that's hey buddy. And you can sort of use that to cool effect. So like where that might come in handy is you've got situations where the scale of an object, it's the transform scale that I was talking about before. One cool little effect, and it would take me a long time to imitate it and recreate it here. But using sort of some smoothing methods like lerping and whatnot, you could increase the scale of an object from nothing, because if an object has a scale of 0, it's virtually invisible to its actual scale. So if you did that smoothly, you could imagine that the object would probably imitate it, maybe. Would sort of like seem to appear out of nothing and then get bigger. I've used that in situations like the UI before, like where the player might walk up to a panel on a wall, and the panel will suddenly appear and like just whoop, and it will get bigger, and you can read it and stuff like that. So you can use the scale of an object as well as enabling it and disabling it. So the object would probably be disabled until the player gets within a certain distance or triggers something. Then it becomes, and then it gets enabled and really quickly just scales up. So just bang, whoop, up it comes. It appears to just sort of appear out of nowhere. It's a cool thing. Have I ever made a game and maybe published it? I've made a lot of stuff. I don't have any games on Steam. Sorry, I'm assuming you're asking me. I don't have any games on Steam. I'd like to, maybe, one day. I don't know. But I have released a lot of games over the years on different websites and things like that. Nothing... Yeah, can be. But nothing I've ever really sold, like... Yeah, I got some games on itch. I use itch to publish some stuff. I think there's an itch description in a lot of my videos, itch link in a lot of my videos or something, so you should be able to find it if you're curious. But I don't know. I've never really sold any games. I've got different software that I sell, and I mean, I work professionally as a developer, like a programmer. So it's kind of cool because like I've never had to worry too much about it. But I've got a couple of ideas and a couple of projects on the go, and hopefully, the next couple of years maybe, there'll be something out there. But I got a lot of stuff, and I have contributed to so many different projects. Like I have helped out like hundreds of people by now. So I swear, if my name was in the credits of every game I've technically worked on, I'd be all over the place. So, community service simulator, sweet. I'd play that. Done. I did a Papers, Please knockoff for a game jam that I was quite proud of. Combat Claim, it's called. But it's like, yeah, just like dragging sheets of paper around and comparing like insurance claims and things. I thought that was hilarious. That's on Itch. Yeah, it's all good fun though, isn't it? So yeah, you can just easily by adjusting like the transform components and sort of toggling objects on and off, you can pretty easily sort of like make some cool little effects, make it look like things are appearing and disappearing and shrinking from view and things like that. Probably another one that goes without saying as well is like, yeah, you can, so now that we've sort of spoken and I've run you through colliders and stuff like that, colliders and objects don't necessarily have to have a visible presence in the world to have any sort of properties. Like an object can have no mesh at all, and its collider can still exist and it can still technically interact with things within the world. Like that should still fall. We're not going to see it because I've got that game world maximized, the game view maximized. Yeah, we can sort of see it's like, off it goes, it's still falling. I don't remember why that one wasn't colliding. Unless, I think the mesh might also... I don't know, yeah, because it's off the edge, that'd be why. Yeah, if I do this, you'll see this object should still collide with the base, even though there's no mesh. So it still has physical properties in the world. And that's kind of cool because you can use colliders and triggers and things like that within your games, and they can still be invisible and they can still do stuff. So you might have like let's say you've got a world in which that's cool, you won't fall off the edge. You might have a world in which you don't necessarily want the players being able to fall over the edge. Let's say they do for some reason. You don't want them to be falling for all eternity, so you could just maybe under your game world just have a big collider or something like that, and if they hit it, they die or they respawn or something like that. It doesn't have to be visible, it can be invisible. The player doesn't have to see it, it can still interact and do things, kind of. It's just a cool little effect, and I think people tend to forget about that one as well. Just one of those things. Not only that, but yeah, probably the only other big thing as well. And this will make more sense, like if you're not a sort of incredibly strong coder, or you're not familiar with code, or like C# or programming in general, I guess. Pretty much everything in Unity is a class, a custom class of some kind. And that's really cool because it means that everything can be interacted with, and you can basically edit anything you like on the fly. I'll get to that one in a second, buddy. But yeah, all your components, every single component that you attach to an object can be edited, can be accessed, can be modified. Don't underestimate that, and use it because it's a really powerful tool. And I think like a lot of people sort of start off programming and they'll modify objects and move them around and all that, and they don't realize they can actually get into the nitty-gritty details of like each property of every single component, and and right down to every single little value, and you know, you can modify all that, and you can change it on the fly when you need to. And maybe, yeah, in coming months and stuff, I might try and cover a lot of that in code. I think a lot of my tutorials do cover this stuff as well, but sometimes it's good to just rehash it all, I suppose. But yeah, you can edit anything at all, and you can retrieve data from them as well. So if you wanted to know how big an object is, for example, a lot of the time you can use I believe the renderers and the colliders to actually get the boundaries of the object, get its size in many different ways. So yeah, stuff like that's really handy. So you can actually access pretty much anything, any value, any property of any component of any object, you can access in a script, and you can change it most of the time. There's some exceptions to that, but yeah, you'll know them when you see them, sort of thing. Cool. That was sort of most of the little tricks and things. I'm always happy to elaborate on this stuff as well. Like, yeah, if any of you aren't in Discord, definitely jump in. I'm always on there. I work from home, so Discord's pretty much running 24/7. I may not always have time to sit and chat for hours or anything, but I can usually answer any questions or say hello. But yeah, otherwise, guys, like probably the only other bits of advice that I could seriously leave you with regarding Unity and game development in general. Nothing is ever impossible. If you ever feel like a situation's impossible or something's never going to work, you're probably just looking at it the wrong way. Like it's, yeah, programming's just like, or any game development really. There's a million ways to achieve anything, and just because something doesn't work for you one way doesn't mean it's not going to work at all. You just need to find a way that works. So sometimes the best thing you can do is just think outside the box. Just alter your perspective. If you can't see a solution, just change the way you're looking at the problem, I guess. But that's pretty much it. That was it for the topics. I'm happy to open it up if you guys have any questions or anything. Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. I know agile development well. It's good fun. I do, well, my teams, we usually work with agile development, but yeah, we just don't have an office in the city I live in. So my company doesn't have an office in the city I live in, so we all work from home or on the client side. It's good fun. No. It's 1:15 in the morning here. My fiance would likely kill me. How old am I, you asked as well? I am 32, I think. And I started programming when I was old enough to reach a keyboard on a desk. I've had a computer my whole life. My dad bought one when I was really little, and he taught me to program, I think, DOS menus and stuff like that. So I've always done it. I've always played games, and that's sort of it. I've been a programmer much longer than I've been a developer. So thanks. I get that a lot. Yeah. Anyway, guys. I don't know, game development's always just been one of those things, man. I think most gamers are the same, we play games, we love games, we want to make them. It's just sort of a natural progression. I think I'm just lucky that I've been able to teach myself how to code and learn these things and stuff like that. That's okay, buddy. That's the other interesting thing, man. There's so many people of different... I think even in my channel alone, there's people of all age groups and, people from all over the world and this sort of stuff. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, that's it, eh? Makes me a little bit jealous. I wish I'd had Unity and all these options and indie games and Steam and all that stuff. If I could go back and tell even 10-year-old me Just be like, dude, one day you're gonna have like a games library with over 600 games, and you're gonna be able to install most of them on your computer, and you're gonna be making games, and there's gonna be like programs that you can just run and code and make your own games and stuff. Like he would have lost his shit. Like he would have thought it was the best thing in the world. Wouldn't have believed me. Anyway, guys, I hope that sort of answered some questions. I'm getting pretty tired. Been at this, 3 hours, 15 minutes we've achieved nearly. It was a good stream. Actually, thank you, heaps for stopping past and like making it interesting. And thanks, Tom. Cheers, man. 3 hours, go dudes. I'm impressed. BoJack Horseman, Archer, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Trying to think what else we've been watching. Just finished watching that Final Space on Netflix. Disenchanted, the new Matt Groening cartoon. Yeah, I watch lots of stuff. I like Netflix. Netflix is good. Yeah, Brooklyn's sick. I don't know where you guys are, but yeah, Australian Netflix isn't fantastic. We've only just got I want to say the latest season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine has only just come out on it. So yeah, I'm just working my way. I'm just finishing that season. I don't know if you guys have it on Netflix or whatever, but I really like The American Vandal. I haven't seen number 2, but the first one was really good. Yeah, a little bit. We just like stay stuck down to the chairs. What? It's upside down. I don't know, man. Feels normal to me. No, I got a cat scratching at my door. I don't know, guys. Are we pretty happy with the structure of that stream? Everything sort of, I don't know, learn anything? Everything was good? We're happy? Cheers, buddy. I think I'm going to end it though, because I am getting well tired. And I'm struggling to talk and think. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm King, man. That was sweet. Cheers, dude. Sticking around. I really enjoyed this. I'm hoping we can get a few more people in and maybe make it a bit of a regular thing. Maybe try it again in a week or 2 or something like that. I got one coming up for Blender. I got a mate coming around and I'm gonna try and teach him some Blender so we can have a few drinks, and I might stream that just for a bit of fun. Don't know how it'll go. Yeah, man. I play a little bit of Rocket League. Just, a little bit. Just a little bit. Not heaps. Oh, what? Whoop. Container keys. I got lots of crates. Maybe I'll trade you one day, dude. I don't really open them or use them. I just hoard them. Anyway. I got you on Steam here, man. I'll talk to you on Steam. I'm gonna kill the stream. This has been good. This has been really fun. A lot harder than I ever would have thought. Not that you guys have made it difficult or anything. I'm worn out. Maybe scheduling it for 10 at night is probably not a wise idea. I don't know. I'm glad I'm having a drink here. Like, it's made it a lot easier. Just some hydration. Nah, man, don't worry about it. It's all good. Just, come along next time or something. Should be sweet.
Yeah, no stress. Maybe if this becomes a regular thing, end up getting a few people involved, maybe I'll do donations or something one day. But you know, don't stress, man. Work pretty hard, and I get to do this for a bit of fun, so you know, consider myself lucky. Yeah, I'll talk to you around online sometime, dude. And to everyone else that's watching, thank you so much. Kirk at night, he was catching a cold. Yeah, I'm not even going into that. I live on this stuff, dude. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, guys. If you like this, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you keep up with any notifications, and I'll try and post on the Discord channel with a bit more notice next time, rather than like 4 hours. No, not even that. It was like 2 hours or something notice. I'll make it a bit better. But yeah, I'm gonna go get some sleep because I'm bugged. Yeah, cheers, dudes. It's been really good fun. I enjoyed myself, and yeah, hope you guys learned a few things as well. See you next time.